Everyone has something to share, in either wisdom, story, or logic, and it's clearly amazing to hear all the different missing links discovered by people, unique to their own journeys, and in how they have come to discover them. Together, we can help to build a bigger picture for a better future, for a brighter tomorrow. Let's stand united. Let's remove the veils, and let's create a new world together. Are you that missing link? Join Jesse Hale on the Missing Link Talk Show as he helps to unveil the mystery through the unique wisdom and store of others.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome everybody here back to the Missing Link. Today we're excited and honored to have two people who have been on the Missing Link, Kim multiple times, and we're coming here to enlighten everybody on how to unlock your own true superpowers. So how are you doing today, Kim? You're on mute. I think you're on mute there, brother. You've muted yourself, Kim.
There
you go.
Oh, sweet. Sorry about that.
It's okay. So how are you doing today?
Yeah, no, the same. It's been rough, and my wife's been in hospital pretty bad lately, so I've been spending 12, 14 hours a day in there. So she's got multiple sclerosis and had a serious attack on gene breakdowns. So it's been a bit tough there, but otherwise it was okay. Anyway.
Well, our heart goes out to you, to your wife, and just sending her love and energy. And, if everybody here that's listening in the audience and, that's going to watch this on a replay, if you can send Kim Lakefort and his wife some healing energy, some love, and some support, is what they could use right now, more than ever.
Yes.
Your connection is really bad today, Kim. Your connection is really bad today, Kim. You're really choppy and hard to comprehend you.
Okay.
How about you, Aaron? How are you doing today?
I'm good, brother. How you doing?
I'm good. Just trying to, like I said, enlighten people onto what's going on in the world and how, we can unlock our own true powers. So Kim is having some, connectivity issues right now with his Wi-Fi or modem. So
you got me now?
Maybe you can. Your video is choppy. I can hear it.
Really?
Yeah, your video is choppy, but I can hear you.
No, sorry about that. I'm sort of out in the bush a little bit. I usually make videos out here, but you know what I might do? Just hang 10.
Sounds good. We'll just chat with Aaron. So, Aaron, why don't you start off? We both, Kim, he talks about unlocking our own superpowers through our own sixth sense. He, really talks to people about how, we've been programmed just to use our five senses, to forget about our sixth sense, to forget about our intuitive state. And he's, looking for people to stop being inverted in this inverted and perverted world where we've, they've, done everything they can to invert us from our own true powers, our own true self. And, what we're doing is trying to look, and he teaches some methods through the Wim Hof method and, going out into the bush, and he talks about different things, but maybe you can discuss, that's better connection there, I think, Kim, wherever you are.
I'm sitting in the car.
Yeah, we can see the video and hear you clearly. So, Aaron, maybe you can tell us about what your thoughts are on how we can unlock our own true powers and how we can restore, balance back into this realm once again.
Yeah, just having a great conversation with Kim about the heart and how our hearts are that ultimate sixth sense, right? That's our center for connection to the field where all knowledge is known. and a wisdom, I like to say even. And so, yeah, in my experience in life, our true power is in that consistent conversation from the heart to me, the universal heart. And that's, as you know, the central sun. And so, yeah, that's where all our power is when we embody that. So that's my quick answer. I'd love to hear from Kim, though.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the heart is the mind, and people don't realize that. We've got 40,000 cells there that actually controls your whole biological system. And we use our intuition, in the sense of every feeling we come into this world with, when we come into this world, is loyalty, honor, respect, moral, and remorse, inspiration, encouragement. And it's all felt by the heart, with our body cells, with the outside influence. And it's about thinking with the heart. That's what the sixth sense is. The sixth sense is the most positive fields, where the five senses are negative fields. When we think with the reptilian brain, it's five senses with a high IQ. When we think outside the mind, we feel things. We're creatures of feelings. To feel love, to feel compassion, to feel loyalty, honor, respect. It's all about the heart, brother. It's all about the heart.
So when you say that the five senses are a negative field and then the sixth sense is a positive, if you're living in balance using your five senses, but also using your sixth sense, does that positive and negative now balance itself out? And now you can kind of, be at your true superpower?
Well, as I'll explain it the way Jeremy Griffiths, the top knowledge, explains it. We're supposed to think with our mind, with our five senses, 1 to 5% of the time, to work things out with. And that also matches the Bible, because the Bible says everything's metaphor. That means everything in this world here, right, is in our five senses. When we do something like be a mechanic or an artist or whatever you're going to do with your life, a plumber, whatever, you're using five senses. You're going to education to go through diplomacy or a trade or something. So you got to work things out, right? That's what you use your mathematical computer for. Your brain's a mathematical computer to work things out with. Your IQ is based on 98% memory. It make you damn good at what you do, but in fact not intelligent. This is proven on documents. So the outside influence is our sixth sense to feel things between right, wrong, and evil. That's where we're supposed to make a decision, and we can make them in the heartbeat with adrenaline. Like a child from 0 to 7, I think I gave that explanation in the last videos. A child can mastermind a computer game between 3 and 7 and move 7 times faster than an adult can. Pump with adrenaline to be alert, like when we're right with the meth effect, because it activates the adrenochrome with 2 molecules in mentality, which activates all 280,000 chemicals because you're a chemical factory. So you can prepare your genes down your immune system, right? When you go to sleep, your body cells repairs your body. Everybody knows that. Your body repairs when you sleep. That's because you're in your sixth sense, dreaming. Well, when you think instinctively 95 to 99% of the time, your body repairs all the time with 2 molecules in mentality, which is stripped from us between 7 and 15 because of programming of being inverted with a high IQ. Then those molecules die because we think 95 to 99% of the time psychologically with a high IQ, and we don't think with our sixth sense. Therefore, we can't create the Christ oil. And the Christ oil is 2 molecules in mentality that repairs your genes. Graphene oxide serum that makes you conduct your body cells to the outside influence. So your gut feeling is just chakra, right? Gut feeling survival mode, where you feel things, right, with your senses. Look, when you walk down the alley sometimes and you think someone's staring in the back of your neck, you can feel it, but you turn around, there's no one there, right? You can feel it with your sixth sense. And that's what a child does. A child has an outside influence in reality that makes them a mastermind in the computer game. But then between 7 and 15, the wheels fall off, and so does the molecules. And as a result from that, you become like your parents at 24. When a stranger comes to the door and it's a bad person, you get manipulated in 10 seconds flat to believe that person's okay because you come to your conclusion with reasoning of reverse psychology and you think you're intelligent. The child runs in the corner in a heartbeat and you can't manipulate him. He hasn't been programmed. You can feel it. And when a good person comes to the door, a child runs towards that person in a heartbeat with adrenaline, so does a dog. And a parent turns out, the dog's saying to you, I don't know why, because he's inverted and he can't feel it. Well, if you mastermind your mind from 7 years old onwards, like Jesus did for 17 years from reading the Bible, from 7 to 24, you'd be like Jesus. You break free from amnesia and discover you own use the superhuman abilities you got. It's right there. It's very simple. When he broke free from amnesia and discovered who he was, because he was a boy like you and me, he took 12 disciples and done the same thing in a cycle of life for 7 years and mastered their mind so they could do what he can and more as well. And those are facts. They could heal people exactly the same way he could. And it's all about healing. And healing has to do with love, with 8 frequencies of righteousness. Those frequencies are known as angels, the watchers, the watch overs. The Aborigines explain that perfectly correct. Watchers, the angels, the watch overs, and their ancestors. And that's the olive tree with the outside influence, with the power of love and those frequencies. And Mother Nature, we created from clay and mud. All right. We had the holy breath put into us because the holy breath, oxygen is the most important tool. That's why the We're Not Breathing program recreates the molecules with the oxygen. That's why he won a Nobel Prize and got 27 good Guinness Book of Records for superhuman abilities. He was chosen for that. He went walk about in the mountains for 40 years. And the research that's done has shown that he recreates the molecules. So we now recreate those molecules the same as serotonin that dies. And that's what the Christ oil is. It's the two molecules in mentality. And graphene oxide conducts, and it has a personality, right? Like water. You're 75% water. Talk to a plate of water that's bad to a plate of water and good to a plate of water, put them in the fridge overnight and you see what happens. One looks ugly, the one you talk bad to, and the one you talk nice to looks beautiful. Well, our body cells look the same in our DNA. When we think too much in our five senses, our body starts going corruption, curse, and collusion. And we found that in mental health research all over the world, gene defects and cancer defects gone from 2% in 1960 to 54% today and accelerating 7 times faster. We have to get reinverted. We have to go back to a primal state because it's escalating. And that's recorded on documents all over the world. Mental disorders and gene defects are going through the roof. And that's what we're watching in everything today. Mental disorders and gene defects and confusion and frustration. What was Babylon all about? Confusion and frustration. They use the same inverted tools to confuse everyone. That's why there's so many new belief systems today. Right? Everyone's believing in something, and if you don't believe what they believe in, they think you're wrong and you're evil. Everyone's using the same tools, and we've got to stop that nonsense. Don't you agree, Aaron?
That's causing big division. Is
massive.
That's the biggest one that I see. If you don't agree, you're evil. If you don't agree, you're demonic or and I see that and I hear that a lot, and that's just a tool to keep people divided. What's your thoughts, Aaron?
Yeah, when Kim was talking about Jesus' healing powers and the Christ oil and all that, it's so powerful to realize that our power is so much connected to our collective family here, right? Because when Jesus went home to see his family and friends, he couldn't do his miracles because of the unbelief, the disharmonic field, right? And so when we really want to access our powers, it's a unifying power. Like that's why these secret societies have had so much power, is they're unified. They have this unified heart and mind with an intention. And that's where all the power is, because when we get our collective and just those around us unified in this heart of love with the greatest good intentions, we're unlimited. We literally can do infinite miracles. And it has everything to do with the hearts of those around us believing and knowing that we can, because we program the unified field with our knowings.
Okay, I wanted to read this post that I made yesterday, and I believe you both commented on it, but it got a little bit of mixed comments. So every true healer I've ever met came from a really hard background. It is your sole mission to heal others. The universe needs to make sure you can heal yourself first. That's the initiation process on Earth to access true divine healing abilities. And I asked people for their thoughts on this. And I got a lot of comments, but then some people would say that no one's a true healer, only Jesus healed. And, we're only vessels for the healing through Jesus. And I tried to comment to that person and I said that, Jesus taught his disciples how to heal, and they went along healing people like he did. And he also said, you can do everything that I can do and more. So if he can do all these miracles, if he's got this and you can do that and more than him, why do people feel that they need to be so subservient that they can't have any power? It's all just through Jesus, and without Jesus, they have no power, and they feel like they don't have that, Christed energy inside of them. They feel it has to come from some other place. So maybe we can start off with you, Kim.
Well, what I've learned myself, coming from the Western civilization, coming from the Nordic, coming from all the controlling belief systems, and then going into the outback of Australia, that's where I saw the biggest miracles I've ever seen in my life with one person. They've got a guy in Australia, an elderly there. All the big miners, all the big mining companies, they hire him to come in. When they go somewhere to mine and they haven't got enough water, they bring him in. They pay him hundreds of thousands of dollars to come in, and he creates water. He brings water to there when they need water, right? And I refer to a story like the king in Thailand. About 450 years ago, Thailand was a waste desert. You can go and look this up. It's a desert nearly, right? And they had no water. They had the lowest water in the world. The king came along there and said, you know what? We're going to have water, more water than anyone else in the world. And we're going to be flourishing with the jungle. 30 years later, and ever since, they've had more water and rain than anyone else in the world. So we have a power individually. And I've seen individual power where a person's pick up a car. We talked about this before. You know, pick up a car. Yeah, well, you don't need any collective stuff for that at all. The things I've done and the things that I know people have, there's no collectiveness in that whatsoever. But collectiveness, we can teach others collectively, and our power can teach others. And that's where the collective mind comes in. There's this collective belief system that we're all the same. BS, man. Who's the same? We're all different. We've got different biology, different chemicals, different mixture, different fingerprints, different eye scans, different everything. One's a mechanic, the other one's a plumber. You know what I mean? I'm good at running, you're good at walking. You know, like we're all different, right? And everyone's in this concept we have to be collective and the same. Nobody was ever the same in any history whatsoever. They were all different. Like Enoch built the pyramids and levitated the stones, right? Noah built the ark with 120 planks by himself. Elijah brought fire out of the sky. Moses parted the ocean. Jesus healed people and resurrected, and they resurrected others as well. So they had different powers. And you can do what I can and more is unlocking the progenic genes for the bloodline. That's what Jesus explains about the bloodline. His bloodline goes back through all that division for every family member, and that's coded in our DNA with 13.5 billion years of knowledge inside 1 centimeter of our DNA. We have 1.5 million foreparents, 700,000 forefathers. And our trades and the tools that we use is often our forefathers' footsteps. When we get angry, we get upset, we do this, we do that. We have 550 different characters built in each one of us. And that means you're using your forefathers' footsteps. And that's even proven with the top physios and scientists in the world today, that we use progenic genes and unlock things and we don't know who we are. That's why I said to you, we've been stuck in a reincarnation trap. That's why God created the most powerful evidence in 1990 to prove that. We are stuck in a reincarnation trap. But now if we don't wake up, we're going to get stuck in it for 1,000 years and wish we were dead because no one dies. But we get another crack after 1,000 years. Even Dolores Cannon talks about that, and some of the greatest wisdom and knowledge on the earth. They talk about, we're just going to get stuck there for a while. You know what I mean? But you see everyone again. Well, if you get free from the reincarnation trap, you discover who you are. You break free from amnesia. And then you go in a new timeline with sevenfold wisdom and knowledge to live at the tree of life. But you have to use those 8 tools of righteousness. Everyone thinks about love, and compassion with Charles and Moses. Well, love starts with 8 tools of righteousness. Every Shalom mastermind, indigenous person, monks and Buddhas, and people in the street with street wisdom have taught those tools for thousands of years. You have to have the 8 tools of righteousness correct because they're the angels of righteousness. You know, they were always the angels of righteousness. I mean, it tells you in the Bible, they're the angels of righteousness. And they're the frequencies that we're in harmony with. And they're our ancestors that we conduct with those frequencies. And that's the glory of love pouring all over us with those frequencies. When we tap into that, we tap into it with Mother Nature and the whole 9 yards. We're connected to everything. We're pure love. And there's no other explanation for that. I don't think there is. We can keep it basic because it really needs to be basic. It doesn't have to be confused about things. That's what people don't realize. You don't need modern technology and all the BS today. You just need to use a basic common sense and think outside the mind because that's where you're intelligent, not with a high IQ and modern languaging. It's a proven fact. You just got to have faith, really, and use simplicity because words hurts us. When we start getting confusing with technical words, we confuse each other even more with those technical words, and we don't need to do that. We need to use simplicity and simple words to understand. Hey, come on, man. Do you remember what your father used to say? He gave you a clip over the ear if you didn't behave, right? Sometimes you're a bit cruel to be kind, right? But did you do it out of love? Of course you did. You know what I mean? And you got to be a bit confronting sometimes and give someone a clip over the ear, right? Because you're doing it for the right reasons. But a father's always got the fatherly figure with the loyalty, honor, respect, moral, rules, inspiration, encouragement. There's no other tools you know about once from 0 to 7 or should know about. But you see, if we mastered our mind to believe that that's our most powerful tools, to always follow our heart, always follow passion, we can do extraordinary things. You know, I went off the rail as a kid. I was rejected, right? I was rejected in school, rejected by my dad, took drugs to numb myself when I was 12 years old and screwed up big time, right? Watched my mates die on heroin, all that sort of crap. Went through the mill in a bad way. But you learn from it. And you learn the more you suffer, the more you're open-minded because you realize that so many people are so cruel in the world because you're suffering from that hand. You're suffering from cruelty and judgmental behavior and getting your head punched in every day for 9 years. You know, because you got red hair and freckles. right? And that's a fact. It's hard to have red hair and freckles and be gay or black, I can tell you that, because I was the only redhead for about 10 miles, right? And you just become the perfect picking tool. Like, people just love to pick on people and belittle people and gang up on people. That's the way most people really are. So you suffer, and you learn from that, and you just don't want to be like that. You don't want to be like your dad that rejected you. You don't want to be like them. And you think more instinctively when you take drugs, because you take drugs to numbing yourself because you're suffering, right? And then you open your perception up with the sixth sense, because drugs opens up the sixth sense. And you think outside the mind from your suffering. And suffering always creates greater people, because people are more caring that when they come from that walk of life from suffering. And me and my friends, we suffered in the streets. We copped it hard. And when you cop it hard, you learn things differently and start to evaluate the way that your parents are, the way the government is, the way that psychological people are, that goes to school and education, that goes through the hoops perfectly, right? They're always egotistical, always have been. But then you look at people in the streets, right? They get together and they don't judge each other that way, because they're all suffering, right? And they come from all walks of life. And we usually take our shirt up our back and give our mates a hamburger with their last $10 and look after one another, because we can't depend on the fucking system. We have to depend on each other, right? And you kind of realize that the indigenous peoples always live like that by the Wynyard rule equally, right? And two simple commandments, naturally and organically, for the same reasons, right? Because they're not judgmental and biased. And you understand a lot more things about life when you tap into nature and harmony with the indigenous people, about how humble they are compared to us, and how they just don't use the tools that we do. Silence speaks in volumes. We all know that. Silence speaks in volumes, and people very silent always seem to be far more intelligent. They don't have to put tickets in themselves. They don't have to prove a point. You know what I mean? And you learn that through your walk of life with what you go through. Eventually you get to the point where you don't care what people think anymore, because you've been hurt so much. And it's through the hurt and punishment. I got to the point where I got my head punched in so much and copped so much shit that eventually it just doesn't hurt anymore. So you conquer the hurt, and you conquer the suffering. You conquer the stress, the fear, the anxiety, the confusion, the frustration. And eventually you break free from that, right? You break free from all that BS and realize all these people don't know any better. And that's what Jesus said on the cross when he broke free from amnesia, right? He said, Father, please forgive them, because they do not know any better. And to learn to forgive everybody and be that loving that you can not only love thy neighbor, but love thy enemy as well. That's a concept people don't understand. Well, go to prison for 10 years and you'll learn how to love your neighbor and your enemy, right? Because you learn more about people in prison in 5 weeks than you learn about your best friends outside. And that's where I got brought through the human condition, and God put me through that process to learn that and bring the cure to the human condition, humanity, because that's where you learn about people. Living in a concrete jungle is like living in a jungle. No governments and authorities control your fake freedom with, and no education system control your way of life and manipulating the truth all the time and twisting it, right? And normalizing what was immoral yesterday. No greed, power, and temptation control every aspect of your life. No modern technology and modern images that we're warned about so much. So in there, you have to think instinctively in a family environment, and everybody lives in a family environment where there's 50 people, and the elderly take care of the young people, and they can only work on one type of rule in there. And that is, in fact, loyalty, honor, respect, moral, remorse, inspiration, encouragement. Clean up after yourself, right? Stop doing your fucking head in, right? Stop thinking and judging all the time. You got to be nice in here and fucking behave yourself, just like a father would tell you, right? And it works, right? And it works in ways you never understand. But you learn to love the worst enemy in your life, the most hateful or the most evil people that you're afraid of. You learn to live with them. And when you learn to live with everyone like this, you realize that evil always attacks evil. It doesn't attack good people, never did. And you realize that when you follow your heart in prison, all the evil motherfuckers in jail, they attack each other every day. But if you're a good, humble person, they're not even interested in you, right? And that's what's extraordinary. Bad people are not interested in people that's using their heart, right? But they're always interested in competing with each other. And people who goes into competition to compete, compete, they're the same people. Water finds its own level, always does, right? And they always accuse people what they're guilty of. That's what they always do. That's why they chase each other's tail all the time. Well, you learn all that shit in prison better than anywhere else in the world, because you really live with people and discover what people really like from all walks of life. And you see a completely different perception about people than what you do outside. In jail, we lose everything we got. We lose absolutely everything. Our family runs away, everyone is right. You realize the only thing that's yours is your moral values, and you hang on to that bar. And the only thing you do every single day of your life is dwell on the reason why you're in there and go through that domino effect of what you created, amongst your family, loved ones and friends, and why they deserted you. And you go through that emotional feelings and dwell on why you're in there, right? And people go deep in there and they feel sorry. They feel so sorry. 84% of people dwell And all they think about is the greatest moments they ever created, that they treasure the most. And that's when you realize the most important thing in the world. You lose everything. You're on the bottom of the barrel. You lost everything you've ever known in this world. And the only thing that's yours is your moral values. And the only thing that you got is the greatest moment you treasure the most, because you dwell on them every day. And then you live in a whole different perception that you've never lived in before in your life. And then people don't understand that. But it's totally different. And we work equally in there, and we have equal meals and look after each other equally and live by the vineyard rule equally and 2 similar commandments, because we have to, right? And you sit down and have a coffee with someone and you know them in 5 hours, but you know your best friends in 2 years, because that's the only way things function in there. And you have to get along with people, and then you understand how the indigenous people live. They always communicate and they always resolve things. And that's what you do in jail, because there's no governments there. There's no authorities. You have to resolve things. Every now and then there's a person that gets in a fight, but when you're in a 600-man jail, trust me, one big battle goes on in a yard once a month. What do you think they do the rest of the time? You know, people's got this concept everyone's evil in there. Only 16% of people are. It's recorded on documents. The 84% in there's got the highest moral standards in the world because of this. You know, and they go through cognitive programming nonstop to address their offending behavior and the dominant effect that it has upon people. And the only thing you dwell on is your moral values, empathy and remorse, because you've got nothing else in there. So you learn things about life in there that relates to the streets, relates to the indigenous people, and the things that's missing. But where's it missing from? In society, but we had it as a child, or should have had. Do you know what I mean? And that's the father figure that's in jail, where we all look after each other like brothers and sisters and look up to the elders, and everybody respects the elders in there like they do in the indigenous people. The Western civilization doesn't. You can't get any 40-year-olds to respect a 6-year-old anymore. Go to an indigenous family, go in prison, they respect them, man. Right? They don't disrespect them like they do outside. And then you find freedom in prison after 7 years, because it takes a cycle of life to get out of the psychological behavior. And listen to this. This is very interesting. Every person that comes to jail up to 7 years in jail, 86% always comes back because they still think they're right mind. Well, every atheist that comes into jail, every single child sex offender, and nearly every gay person can't address their moral values. It's recorded on documents because they're inverted so much they don't have to take any responsibility for their action. And then 84% of the people from the streets has got the highest moral standards in the world. That's recorded on documents, 84%. Why? Because they're living like that in the family environment, and they feel things 10 times more powerful than they do outside. But when you come in there, you're psychological, egotistical, just like you are outside. Divide. I'm better than everyone, blah, 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 blah. After 7 years, you realize that it takes a cycle of life of 7 years to break free from amnesia. And when you break free from amnesia after 7 years, what do you discover? Every person in jail who's done 7 or more years, 96% never come back. 86% comes back under 7 years. But everyone over 7 years, 96 never comes back. They go off the grid and get away from people, right? They find freedom in prison they can't find outside. And what's the first thing they all say in every document in the world? We're not in our right mind. We're not in our right mind. That's why we keep offending. The voice in the mind keeps making us do these things. And we were deciding that from education. What else did we learn? Here's something interesting. Up to 2008, on every document in the world, they thought that when you go to prison, you can't readapt to back outside. Well, now they discovered that was inverted as well. Because when you go to prison after 7 years, you find freedom in prison you can't find outside. So that means we become mentally institutionalized when we go to school, and we're mentally institutionalized throughout our life with stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, paranoia, and live in denial about it. But we go through these emotions nonstop. When you go to prison for 7 years, you get free from that. And you go back to your primal state, the same as 0 to 7. And then you begin to discover that wonderful gift that God gave you from 0 to 7. And then you begin to explore it, and you're free from the human conditioning. You never suffer anymore because the voice in your mind's gone. And that's an interesting path when you break free from that and go back to your primal state and discover these things. And then we find the cure of the human condition and brought it to humanity in the biggest mental health research ever conducted in global history, because we know we're not in our right mind, and we get out of that right mind and we become more inspirational with more encouragement than anyone else. And when we come out of prison, people think we're too much because we're pumped with adrenaline again to be alert like they were, and we create the molecules again. That's how we discovered that people in prison after 7 years can preserve life. We found the preservation of life in prison with the biggest scientific research ever conducted in global history. Then we found the Australian Aborigines and the oldest indigenous people all had to recreate those molecules. And we're the first ones to discover that in 5,000 years. And that's where all the knowledge comes from, with 15,000 top scientists all over the world when that was discovered in 2008. Interesting stuff. But they went into the mental health research in 1999 when they declared that we're in post-human stage and no longer human, and the last human being was born in the outback of Australia in 1960, and we stripped from our sixth sense. The primary problem for climate is you strip from your sixth sense. Go read the documents. That's the primary problem. No one's talking about it. Why not? Because they don't want you to know. The ES systems that's brought out by NASA with Jason Shurko and all this, right? And Unifed, they give you molecules so you can fire up your sixth sense and repair your genes, but they don't teach you how to think outside the mind with your sixth sense. So you do it naturally and organically. And that's what you're talking about, Aaron. Doing it naturally and organically, and it's thinking outside the mind with those frequencies, to think with your heart, not with your mind. That's the secret. We always think with our mind, and that's where this stuff is over. He said, she said, it's finished. We're thinking with our mind, with the intuition. That's what we're here to do, to unite on those bases. You agree with that, Aaron?
Yeah, and I would even agree that, we're to all these polarities in life, like we were talking on our call earlier, light and darkness, for instance, they're meant to be working in perfect union, just like the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, the heart and the mind. We're to bring all things together. That's what the whole law of God leads us into, is this wedding party where we merge these polarities in their divinity. And that's our solution for everything. That's what's going to lead to ascension. That's going to heal everyone, even bring everyone back from the dead. So that's where our power is,
And that's why my understanding from the information I got was, when we talk about yin and yang, one can't exist without the other. You're supposed to lead with the righteous tools, and sometimes you've got to be cruel to be kind. Do you know what I mean? And that goes embedded in our DNA and also our human history. Sometimes you've got to do something you don't like doing, but you're doing it for the right reason, right? So we use the tools of both good and evil for that reason, right? And it's not to do for harm. It's not to do for the wrong reason. But if you're doing something for the right reason, like sometimes you got to defend yourself, right? You just have to. Sometimes you got no choice. You got your back up against the wall. What are you supposed to do if someone's going to try and kill you? You got to defend yourself, right? So sometimes you got to do something evil to defend yourself, in that aspect of life. Well, life's based like that, right? Sometimes we have to be a little bit cruel to be kind, and sometimes you got to break your knuckles, right, and not be afraid. Sometimes you got to just go out there and jump on the horse and go riding and jump off the cliff and be wild, right? And you got to face these things, right? You got to face the devil head on. You got to face all evil things, because I think a lot of people don't understand the devil and Satan. It's just dark energy, right? And it's dark energy that controls your mind if you don't think right, and if you don't let your heart lead. You can do anything in this world providing that you lead with your heart and you're doing it for the right reason, for the greater good. And sometimes you just got to get someone out the fucking way when they're annoying you. You know what I mean? There's people you can't help, that. There's people you can't help. There's people you can never help, no matter what. There's always the inverted, and that's going in our biblical history. You're always going to have people that's objective, right? That's inverted. People's always going to care more about greed, power, temptation, and materialism than what they are about life. End of story. You're never going to change that.
Okay, I'm gonna read a few comments, and then I'm gonna get you both to comment on it. We'll start with Aaron. So, we've got here Hope, Love, and Joy. He says, question: how do we, all of us listening, unlock the abilities we have deep inside so we can battle what is coming, such as transhumanism? He says, question: how do we stop transhumans? Question: how do we stop the vax? Question: how do we stop cybernetic armies? And then he says, question: how do we use what you were talking about to unlock our unlimited abilities? And then another question: how can we use what you're discussing to stop Agenda 2030? What they want half the population gone. Question: if he takes a breath, what are 6 easy things we can do to transform our entire body, mind, and spirit? How do you recommend people unite through enough people to stop the WEF? So basically kind of all on the same line, questioning. I just want to get through his questions, kind of the same line, but maybe if we start with Aaron, and then we'll get to Kim on what's your thoughts on Hope, Love, and Joy. He teaches people to unlock their own true superpowers as well. So he's coming in here at a place that, he's wondering how, what your guys' thoughts on how we can do that to stop some of this stuff that's projected to come down that most of us may not like.
Great questions, by the way. So in my experience, having worked directly with these people who have been controlling the World Economic Forum and all these agendas, what I did was I realized I am them. This I am that I am consciousness is so important, because every one of these crimes are magnified distortions within our bodies, really, when you really get down to it. And so that's why I love this Ho'oponopono prayer, where the first step is to take 100% responsibility for this co-created reality. Because when you do this, y'all, we dissolve the polarity between us and them, good and bad, and we just unify it all in us as the I am that God is, the all in all. And in that space, we're able to operate from this true presence with, wow, when I think negative thoughts, I poison my cells. Those are my children that see me as their God of their world, of my body. And I actually poison them with my less than life-giving thoughts and emotions. And anything that really is a negative thought or emotion is toxic. It produces chemical molecules that poison us, right? And our children. So it's so important to realize this is all here to awaken us to what we've been doing since our descent from divine dimensions we call Eden. Really, that's it. This is all to wake us up to what we've been putting ourselves through for eons. And so when we can take that stance, I can guarantee you this works. It literally led our world leaders into dimensional ascension. They all know this, and they know that they gave us 2.5 years to see if the world, the 99%, would receive this message and apply it, which is simply the biblical message of reconciling all things to God through Christ, because all things come from God, which is unconditional love, right? All light and all darkness, you can see, is right there. It's unconditionally loving until we program it to be the opposite of love. So that's my answer for that.
Your thoughts, Kim, on all those questions? How do we unlock our superpowers to stop these entities from, wanting to depopulate, wanting to destroy, wanting to control? How do we break free from that as a collective?
Well, see, I made videos about this, right? And this is what people don't realize. And excuse me for saying this, right? Don't take it offensive. But, a lot of people realize that people on social media platform, they're different, right? They just talk all day about what they're going to do. But the truth is they're all spineless, but they don't know what to do. That's why they ask for information, right? Because they're allowing this to control them. Like, listen, no weapon formed against you can prosper. You can allow to do that by thinking about it. Disconnect yourself from it. There are hundreds of thousands of people that do not get on social media platform and lives off the grid. Many people live off the grid and couldn't give a shit what the rest of the Western civilization wants to do. And they're the ones with the superhuman abilities. They're the ones that live to be the oldest. There's plenty of civilization that live to be 150, 60 years old. Most people don't believe in it. Oh, man, I could show you plenty of villages, right, with the oldest, wisest men in the world. And you know what? They don't care what the rest of the world wants to do, right? Get off the grid, because people that I talk to get off the grid. Get off the grid and fend for yourself and grow your own food, right? Because there's New Earth and world transformation movements moving right now all over the world. They've been doing preppers for more than 25 years, preppers, right? Building underground bunkers. A lot of platforms into that. Well, consider this, right? Whatever you believe in, right? Think about this. We're going into massive extinction as warned in Revelation, right? All the catalysm events that's going to come. The sixth mass extinction has been doing that for 120 years with every single biblical warning. And no one's aware of it at all. Well, how come 7 million people of all the elite and all the people we're talking about bought property in the bottom of Australia, Tasmania? Why are they building the 5-way glaciers? Why did they start the flat earth theory? To confuse everyone at the same time while they're building there. Well, they built properties down in New Zealand and all the properties in Tasmania. It was a mainstream media the other day that 11,000 of the top scientists is moving there now, down under. Right now, you're hearing it from all over the world. Military is moving 600 ton of food in every day in the underground, all the underground tunnels in Mount Graham, right? Because they're setting up for what? Well, 5-way glaciers are going to melt 10 times faster than you think. There's 5 volcanoes as that go there, right? There's devastation all over the world. There's 14 countries collapsed, going into phantom, and they're collapsing by another 20, right? Believe me, it's all coming, right? Systems are coming down everywhere all over the world, and America's being ripped down. Everyone knows that. America's finished. I mean, come on. If you don't know that by now, you're not really awake. America's finished. The whole system's being brought down, and there's a whole nother movement here bringing it down, because it won't change. It won't change. With those capitalism and their way of life and their dollars getting stripped apart to take the power away from Babylon, right? Everyone knows Americans going to get wiped out. They know that with every new flood coming and all the top physicists and scientists in the world. The end date is 2/27. There's a New York climate put up. A New York climate clock's been put up on YouTube. Your end date's 2/27. You know what I mean? So by the top scientists in the world from the IPCC science reports, you're going into massive extinction by 2/27. Nobody's even thinking about that. Well, why do you think the Pope moved $2.3 billion into Australia? Go Google all this. Why do you think it's on the front page of the Cairns newspaper every week for 7 years in a row? Why do you think the Prime Minister stood at the UN and said, we're leading, right, the new world, right, with the Australian Aborigines, the wisest civilization, on a 300-year structured plan in Australia? Why did Bill Gates buy all the land down there? Why is NASA down there? Why is Area 51 down there? Why is NASA, the CIA and NSA headquarters in Pine Gap, Area 51 in Australia? Why? Why is the Amendment Light out there, the Divine Light, working with those people? Why isn't it working with the rest? Because you have different forefathers, man. You have different forefathers. Like Jonathan Kahn said, who's wrote the book, Jonathan Kahn wrote The Return of the Gods, and there's real people chosen. The elect that's written all the books, right? David Icke talks about this, about the inverted people. He's chosen, he's wrote 16 books that all unfolded perfectly, right? He had a vortex of information that like I did. So did Jonathan Kahn. So did Tom Thorne with Sea Guys 225. And what's happening? Well, go and read these books and you understand. It's everything unfolding. No one's on these pages with the elect that are chosen that writes the books. Well, who brought the cure to the human condition humanity? Only the witness will. Well, who's done that? Well, I brought that to humanity in 2008. 99% of people don't believe in it. They throw stones at me. That's why they're not putting me in the front platform. That's why Jeremy Griffiths and the top policy is moving it, because everyone's throwing stones at me. How would you like it to believe that I'm the most intelligent person that will have brought the human condition to Yemen for the first time in 5,000 years? How's people going to cop that? Well, you know how they cop it here. Right? So think outside the mind, you're cured from the human conditioning, and you can do extraordinary things by thinking outside the mind. You have to learn to master your mind, guys, and it takes 7 years of cycle life to do that. I went through that in prison, right, and brought the cure to the human humanity in prison after 7 years. I go into specific details about how to recreate the molecules to conduct, right, by thinking outside the mind, not thinking with the mind. That's why Jesus said, go back to your childhood with your sense of humor and use your moral values, but go back to your childhood and use your instincts, and you can do what I can and more, doesn't he? And what happens in prison after 7 years when you find freedom in prison? You go back to your childhood and discover who you are and start using those abilities. So there it is, right? I can explain it so easy like Jesus does, but people like to confuse it with quantum fields and this, that, and everything else. You don't need any of those tools, man. It all comes naturally and organically when you tap into yourself and life and nature and you have a relationship. It's about having a relationship, man. It's about being in the Father's image and you in the Father's image and the Father inside you. That's the Holy Spirit, right? He comes inside you and you break free from amnesia and discover who you are. That's what happens, man. You break free from amnesia and you look back in the tunnel. Once you stick your head outside the tunnel, outside the cave, like Jeremy Griffiths explains, like Plato describes, like explained in the Bible, once you stick your head out the tunnel, you look back in and realize, oh my God, I didn't know any better. I had amnesia and nobody else knows any better, no matter what. Right? That's why everybody hated gnostic masterminds. Everybody hated Enoch, everybody hated Moses, everybody hated Noah, and they didn't like Jesus neither because he was a mastermind. And don't forget, he was wild. He smashed the gambling tables on the criminals, not just the markets, but the gambling tables. He didn't fuck around. He told all the pharaohs and all the priests, you're all controlled by Baal, and they were shit scared of him. He's an outlaw, man. You go and look at the oldest movies back in the 30s and 40s, and you understand the kind of person he was, instead of listening to Chocolate and Roses developed today. Go and have a look at any old people 80, 90 years old will tell you, Jesus was a hardcore man. Hardcore. He was an outlaw, and he's hardcore. He didn't get brought up with chocolates and roses, right? He made it very clear, and Enoch brought him up to be perfect. Who's Enoch? Enoch stands for the age of righteousness. What does Enoch stand for? Noah stands for the age of rest. What are we coming into? We're coming into timeline of sevenfold wisdom knowledge for the age of righteousness and the age of rest to live at the tree of life. And that's why it's Enoch and Noah with the age of rest and righteousness. And that's why they brought up Jesus to be perfect, because Noah failed and so did Adam. So Jesus created Enoch for 360 years to walk with the angels, and that's the Mennonites. The Mennonites, the divine knights were around him all the time, the 8 tools of righteousness, and they gave him the power to levitate the stones and build the pyramids. Why did he build the pyramids? Because he took Jesus down there to learn the resurrection for 4.5 years. People's oblivious to this. Then he took him to the monks and the Buddhas to master his mind, right, with the Shulam masterminds. And he mastered his mind there when he discovered who he first was by using the dimensional thinking and dimensional power. And people's oblivious to that. So it's very simple. You've got to go back. Repent means go back to your primal state, not forward. Most people don't want to talk about the Bible. The Bible's the greatest story on earth, man. And can you do the things that they could? No, well, you're supposed to go back and unlock your progenitor genes because it's coded in your bloodline. So you've got to understand who you are by going backwards, not forwards. Everyone's fast tracking to nowhere and going forward with scientific theories. Well, you're using the wrong tools. You're supposed to go back and repent, go back, and you have the superhuman abilities. Unlocking the progenitor genes inside your DNA code with those 8 tools of righteousness is the frequencies of love, right? And it's a quantum field that's all over the world, right? Through love, through compassion, through life, through nature, and all these things. And it's very simple. It's just basic, man. The vineyard rule, right? That's what people don't realize. The vineyard rule is how to govern life equally. Simplicity. The kingdom's your church, and that's everyone that lives by it, right? And 2 simple commandments, to love one another, business burdens. 2 very simple commandments. When you live in nature or in a concrete jungle or in the jungle, it comes automatically. You realize when you live by that, the 10 commandments comes automatically, and so does the 10 that Jesus put on top, like love thy neighbor, love thy enemy. Man, live in a jail for 10 years and you'll get it, right? Or with indigenous people. And then you live in harmony equally, right? And you love one another regardless. You learn to work together and use that compassion no matter what. Look, how many families got a shit brother or a shit sister, right? But they're still your blood, no matter what. You always love them no matter what, okay? And that's what you learn in prison, that everyone becomes your family and spiritually connected. And that's what it's all about. It's about a spiritual tribe, and we are indigenous people. All of us are. And indigenous, people don't even understand what the concept is. Indigenous is being your true self, in your true image, the way you create in God's image. And then you have the power. When you have principalities in the right place, you have the power. God gives you the power when your principalities in maximum capacity with that relationship. Don't be a spineless weak cows. He gives you the confidence, man. He gives you the strength, right? Positivity means power, right? The most positive power. It's not being weak. You don't have a death experience. You don't get controlled by any of that. You don't have a death experience. You don't get any of that BS controlling you. You let go of all that shit. Stop thinking. Stop thinking. Think outside the mind with love, man. End of story.
I like that positivity is power. So
Yes.
so we still are, and kind of we're talking about the hope, love, and joy's question. So we kind of had a follow up, and I think this first started when Aaron was talking. He said questions. So so the I am that they are is planning on killing all of you guys. Sorry about the truth of the agenda, but are you saying not to think about it? And then he says that doesn't give me how to unlock my stuff. And then he said, follow-up question, how do all of the people listening unlock their hidden, inherited, turned off abilities so we can so we can battle transhumanism? You didn't answer it. He said,
Yeah, I actually did. I said, get off the grid, right? And master your mind. It takes 7 years to master your mind, but you're never going to do it in the environment you live in. You got to dedicate yourself to master your mind, like a still on mastermind. I did explain that it takes 7 years to master your mind, to learn to think instinctively and stop thinking psychologically. So you got to disconnect yourself from the system. It's not going to take overnight to do this. Not with 5,000 years of damage. I can tell you that, right? And you got to be addressing this, and you got to be dedicated, and you got to have the thirst to want to be in that image.
Yeah, I think he was saying I didn't answer it, so I want to answer that. Make sure he knows.
Sorry.
It's all good.
I apologize.
So hope, faith, and joy, or whatever your name goes or you go by.
Hope, love, and joy.
Hope, love, and joy. So just that name alone, it's not that we ignore what they're doing or disassociate at all. You actually redirect it, right? We've been given dominion. We have dominion or sovereignty over everything. It's, are you under the spell of a statement or a story, or are you above it, right? Are you taking charge of it? And see, I was targeted for 9 months, put through life and death testing constantly. So I know how this works. And I'm telling you what works, and that is, don't come under the fear spell, just like what Kim's saying. You have to master your mind. And what was the key for me was this original law of God, that is to never know evil and only know goodness. So when I had assassins all over me, for real, and the worst, like the CIA, the deep state, the FBI, like the top assassins, shadow government, they were swarming me like crazy. And all I did was look at them with knowing goodness in them. I essentially was told by the Holy Spirit to look at them with the eyes of the Divine Mother and Divine Father. And I'm telling you all, it works radically, because you can literally, I know the word mind control is kind of intense, but everything is mind control in this universe. All is mind, as they say. It's all thought projection. And you're either receiving it, and that's why they call it spelling, because you're either coming under a spell or projecting a spell. And so when we stay in that pure positive energy we're talking about, which is the vortex, the golden ratio of God's creative force, we're unlimited. And you can project on your assassin who wants to kill you the unconditional love of God, and you can transform them and actually lead them back to God and into ascension, which is what happened. Like these beings, they call themselves Babylon. They were all over me because I was shown the cellular biology of eternal life, the physics of ascension, that they say completed the Bible. And we're all in this position together. So I'm just giving you the golden key on how to overcome this. And it's literally, you lead your greatest fears back to the Holy Spirit of love that we all come from. And that is the ultimate mastered mind. It's the term, like Jesus was, we've told like these 13 families run the world, right? Those 13 families are symbolic of what the Bible's all about, which is astrological symbols. Jesus was the 13th, the Ophiuchus, who's known as the snake handler. A serpent is a spirit. They can be life-giving or not, right? And when you handle your spirits, your thought forms, and the symbol is a man or woman holding the serpent at the head and the tail. And when you have full control over a spirit, a thought form, you're a God of word, which is what human means, right? Human means son, God of word. And it's because that's our job. We're to be sovereign over every single thought form we take into our consciousness and redirect it back to the Son, who is unconditional love. So I hope that really satisfies that question.
Okay, so he asked another question, and then there was a couple of other comments, and so I wanted to kind of get to that. So, he said, if I don't believe in Jesus, then, or if many people don't, does that mean we're all effed? And then he's like, question, did you know that they rewrote the Bible? Did you know that one world religion has happened? Did you know that Jesus isn't in the new book? So I probably people have listened and probably to me talk quite a bit, and probably there's not a lot of people maybe harder on the Bible than I am because of the way it's been rewritten and things that have happened. But the stuff that I've been coming into comprehension, especially as of late, is that every different society, they have their own interpretation of what happened during these majestic days. So, when they say the story's been rewritten a whole bunch of times from other stories, those were just those culture stories explaining at the time of what happened. Every different culture has a different explanation to the same story. So did it actually happen? I'm more in alignment with, yes, this stuff did actually happen. It's just been used and manipulated and changed for the controllers to take advantage of, but the story still basically remains the same in all the different cultures and religions. And that's where, again, the confusion comes in, the division comes in. No, my story is right. No, we're right. When it's all the exact same story, just written a bunch of different ways. So I wanted you guys to talk about that, and we can start with you, Kim.
Well, see, the first thing that happened to me when I was literally chosen by God, the very first thing he said to me was he didn't put me down the path with religions. So I never believed in religions, and I never went to church, but I didn't disbelieve in either. The best people I ever met was Christians, right? The most loving, compassionate people I met were Christians. But God told me straight up, I don't want you to disbelieve, but I don't want you to fall into the narratives that are going on because there's too much conquer and divide. Focus on the human conditioning because that's warned in Revelation. Everyone's in the human conditioning. You've known the oldest and wisest civilization, and I gave you the power, son. And, I can go on like this for the next 20 days. It doesn't matter. The fact is, when we focus on the human conditioning and the cure of the human conditioning, we understand what John says in Revelation. It's all psych-up programs. And when I go into psych-up programs, every single thing you fall into and entertain is psych-up programs. It's deception, one after the other. When you got 20 different stories about Jesus, you got 20 different deceptions as well. People just falls into every deception and use those tools because they use the inverted tools to think with. And everybody does it. Everyone's got their own opinions and their own judgment and their own God knows what else. And every single thing is in the skull. That's why John says it's in the skull. And everything's designed on psychop programs and reverse psychology for 300 years. We are in post-human stage, and people don't even want to face that. Well, if you think outside the mind and put dedicated life into this and break free from amnesia, only then will you be qualified to know that you had amnesia, right? And to wake up is to wake up from the person you think you are and to discover who you really are, right? And when you discover that, you realize, my God, I had to confuse no matter how intelligent I was. Now, I just want to say this. I was number one drug lord in the underground world in charge of the 7 most powerful networks and took over scientists and the top networks. We reversed their plan, right? Took down the highest death toll from hair cocaine, gang killing, and violence for 30 years. I was recorded by the biggest think tank in the world as the biggest mastermind on their think tank. No matter who I was, no matter what I ever did, here's the facts, right? No matter how intelligent I was and what I did in my life, I did not know nothing about life until I broke free from amnesia. And that's when I discovered things. That's when I really discovered. And where did I discover that? In prison. Not through the bureaucratic system of being a drug lord or being a mastermind and having super abilities or any of these things. I was still confused up here and didn't realize the power I really had. Do you know what I mean? And who I really was until I broke free from that. So it doesn't matter how intelligent you are and what you believe in. God told me he put me through that path for a very specific reason, right? So that I would know that we all have amnesia and the world doesn't know any better. The first thing he told me was the whole Western civilization is wrong. And he proved that in an accident in 1990. I made a video about this before. I hope you both watched it, right? About my brother, right? And the evidence that he created. And that proved that we're all stuck in a reincarnation trap. And 95% of the whole Western civilization is inverted because they keep coming back. Most people don't know who they are biblically and who they're connected to with their forefathers. They've got no idea. And that's the truth. They can't even speak about these subjects. Well, take a look at the people that can. Take a people that can use those tools from their progenitor genes. Take a good look and you'll learn some things about these people that uses progenitor genes that have never been stuck in a reincarnation trap. Because Bill Gates and the Freemasons is a fine example of using those tools that are hidden from us. They know who they are. You can go into their history and look at every tool they use and how their forefathers use the same tool. When Bill Gates holds up the book of statistics, that's the same book created in Law and Order documents with the chaos book this thick, how to manipulate the whole population. Go and read both of them. You see, my God, it's the same book. Well, you can go all the way back to the Pharaohs and the Greeks and see the same book as well, revised. And when you see the tools used and the inverted tools that they use, then you might understand what David Icke's talking about. And if you think that David Icke's wrong, think twice, because he talks about the inverted tools and how the whole world's been inverted by those tools, by their forefathers' footsteps, and they use all those tools. And that's how you can tell people if they're human or not, if they're using their genuine organic motor skills or if they're using the unnatural motor skills. Well, the top scholars say that all over the world. You're inverted, you use the unnatural motor skills, right? You can repair your genes down the immune system. If you really want to know about your sixth sense and how spiritual you are, go and get a DNA test done at a Unifit store and you realize your body doesn't go corruption, evolution, and you've got 7,000 defective genes. That's how you know. So the first thing you've got to learn to do is think outside the mind and master your mind. Because then your body cells work together the same way as when you sleep. And if you can't do that, then you're not in that image. End of story. It doesn't matter what you believe when it comes out of your mouth. You're not in the image. And you have to repent and go back to your primal state. Resurrection, you manage going back in primal state. Winner was chosen for this and won a Nobel Prize. He went on the mountains, the light came to him, and he was given the gift how to recreate the molecules. That's why he's got 27 Guinness Book Records for Subian Village. And you know what? It's only a handful of people can do what we can. Right? There's 2 friends that I know that can levitate a 2-ton stun. A 2-ton stone, right? Okay? And if you can't do that, you don't have that power, right? I know a guy that can pick up a log that's 500 kilos, right? The same way, levitate. If you can't do that, you can't do that. Can you pick up a car? If you can't do that automatically, you don't have that power. You haven't got control on it. But you know it happens in an accident, right? You know that sometimes a person picks up a car in a shock. But if you ask them to go back and do it 5 minutes later, they can't do it. So they haven't mastered their mind to do it. But we have these abilities. We create miracles all the time across the world, but we can't master them, can we? So ascension or activation is going back to your primal state to have these extraordinary abilities. And you've got to learn to master your mind with your sixth sense and recreate the molecules. That's why there's Unifits and ES systems set all over the world by NASA to repair DNA and genes, because there's 7,000 defective genes. You know who's got the most DNA damage? Just take a look. America, by a long shot. If you talk about COVID vaccinations or COVID-19 itself, highest death tolls in America is because they're the most inverted with the highest mental disorders and the most gene defects and the most evil people in the world that kills all the time. You can't even give them, Americans can't even live with their gun. They love guns. You know that. Most of them love guns. They're too scared, too spineless to live without a gun. That's why they always shoot each other on drive-bys, because they're gutless, weak spineless cowards. You don't see that in Australia. Same with all the inverted people in the religions. Everything you see in religions in America, you don't see that in Australia and other countries in the world. It's just America, and America thinks the whole world's the same. Fucking no way, man. Come up to Europe and have a good look around. None of them people inverted like they are in America. Same with in Australia. No, they're not. It's just America. And their platforms that's so inverted with all these things and so egotistical. They're the most egotistical, self-centered society in the whole world. You know, I've got more than 2,000 Americans here that was chosen, right? They were in the 2-hour documentary, right, and created Team Challenge. They came from the cave of prisons, didn't they? And they had an 84% success rate at saving people and bringing them out of the mindset and discovering the truth, not going back to prison, not going back on drugs. And then every church in America complained about them. So they had a 10-year investigation in with the federal police. And what did they discover? They're the most moral people in the world. And they came from the cave of prison with the truth of the masses. And they got an 84% success rate, bringing people free from amnesia and never go back to friend or take drugs again. And America's not even paying attention to that. Well, those people are here with me. All those people are here with me, right? And they were sent to me with visions and dreams. And we've got 16,000 people that's come here through visions and dreams. And if you're not getting them, then ask yourself what forefather you got. Because I'm curious about that. You know, when people don't get a vision and dream like me, I get people here every day with vision and dreams.
Kim, you just need to slow your words down a little bit. So Carol is saying, I'm sure what you're saying is worthwhile. Maybe slow down. Mike from our YouTube says, love the conversation with no disrespect intended. Could Kim talk just a little slower, please? Thank you. You get really excited and you talk really fast, and with your accent, a lot of people have a hard time comprehending all of your words.
I actually understand, and I apologize. Because when you're in your primal state, you realize that Aboriginals, they say 3 words and say a whole sentence in 3 words. Everyone's activated with the meth effect are very fast, 7 times faster. And that's the problem. We have to slow down to keep up with you guys so that you understand us. And we have to explain things very carefully because you have to think about it. We don't have to think about it. We have an outside influence and can feel it in the heartbeat with adrenaline. And therefore, we explain it fast. That's why it's metaphor. And it's difficult. It's difficult, but people have to speed up. I don't have to slow down. And everybody wants me to slow down. You got to speed up. You got to get your adrenaline back because listen to me. Adrenochrome is a meth effect. Everybody in the world is creating endorphins and dopamines. Ask the whole world, man. Go and do some DNA evidence, right? Everyone thinks too much with social media platform and they're creating dopamine to get stoned on that. We don't create the meth effect. The meth effect is 7 times faster. So people have to create the meth effect with the adrenochrome to reactivate the gut feeling survival mode. The shiver in your spine is Jacob's ladder. The 33 Freemasons miss. You see how people twist things around? The third eye, the pineal gland, the Christ oil, what is it? It's graphene oxide you conduct with, right? And it's methamphetamine, the same molecules, right? It's a magic potion since the days of Nimrod. They're used as a conductor. Go and have a look at the documents. You know, Nostradamus used methamphetamine and looked into the third eye and predicted the future that Jesus wrote, right? Same magic potions through the biblical history that's removed from the Bible. That's why they took the first 14 books out of the Bible, the power of Solomon, the power of the pharaohs. Oh, they don't want you to know about that.
Well, Aaron talks about Solomon's mind magic, the power of Solomon as well.
Yeah, well, when you talk about something very important, right, let me tell you something that people will not cop. When Moses took the 40,000 Israelites across the desert into the kingdom, there was nothing there, right? The serpent kept biting them. That was their mind because they were selfish, egotistical, judgmental, and competitive because they were psychological coming from the pharaohs. All selfish and egotistical. That's why the serpent was in the mind. So they were biting each other with their selfish, egotistical behavior and disconnected. So Moses took them into the desert, right, in the pits, like in jail, right away from everything, right, to find themselves. And what did he do? He went back to the pharaohs that cooked the bread with graphene oxide gold to conduct with and came back with the bread and fed to all of them. And then they conducted and became instinctive again and found themselves and then created the abilities. They hid that knowledge. The same thing happened with the Persians and the Greeks and the pharaohs in the Pharaoh days. Well, in the pharaohs there, Jesus took 5,500 people out in, you know, he always took people from the underground world. He always took people suffering. He didn't take the city people. He didn't take any of the city people, pharaohs and that. He took the people suffering from the street. He took them out in the paddocks, didn't he? When he went to Samaria, he took all the people from there on the paddock straight away. What did he do when they were all suffering? He said, greed, power, temptation, and materialism things is all you care about. Piss off your money. Go and live in the kingdom. The kingdom's church. That's what he says. He says, you're all about greed and power in your clothing and consumption. That's the Babylonians, right? That's what he makes clear. And then because they couldn't conduct, because they were thinking too much selfishly and egotistically, he goes and gets bread. What does he put in it? Graphene oxide gold to conduct with, right? Because they couldn't conduct. And that's been ripped out from the Bible, the secret codes of understanding things. Well, the Freemasons always use that. That's why they create the sermon, the God particle. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. Bill Gates knew what he's doing the minute he came into this world. He was a mastermind at 24. He could use those progenitor genes. And he's been doing everything and taking over the world ever since. And he's got complete immunity to everything. A lot of people think he's a little porn. Oh, mate, you got a lot to learn. You got a lot more to learn, man. He used the progenitor genes. You can go right back in his history, man. He was the most powerful man by 24, and he used those tools that Jesus did. But he used the inverted tools, the power, creation, destruction. That's why Klaus Schwab and Harari says we have the power, creation, destruction. They built a CERN machine where Polis was the creation and destruction and creation destruction. And they've got CB at the front with creation destruction, right? And who's the prophet? Harari is. He's the prophet. Obama tells you he's the prophet. The elite tells you he's the prophet. He's born in Israel, just like the Bible says. And Prince Charles says he has trillions of dollars at disposal. Right? What's worldbank.org? That's Biz, the most powerful bank in the world. And who's the CEO? Klaus Schwab. Power, creation, destruction. Okay, what's the CEO say at Google with a quantum computer? Oh, we're going to create our own God. What do the others say? We're going to create great gods. They're saying that we're going to create great gods on mainstream media. And then people don't believe in this. Well, it's all every biblical warning is unfolding right there in front of your face. One of the most important prophecies about sun gods were fake artificial suns, right? Let me make that clear to you, right? Okay, the oldest Bible warning, 2,750 years ago in the Ethiopian Bible and the Book of Enoch, it tells you there that we'll recreate the AI world and the artificial suns. So that was taken out of the Bible. Well, why? Because the red dragon created the artificial sun 7 months ago. And they're just putting up a second one. How many photos have come out of America and Canada with two suns? And they're saying, oh, look what's happening. God's creating this and that's happening. The minds of men. They're fucking morons, man. It's on mainstream media that, China created the plasma sun. 14 times more powerful. That's funny. The old biblical warning says that. They will create a sun that's far more powerful. New sun gods. And everyone falls in the sun gods with new gods and the new sun gods. Interesting, because the new sun's being raised by another 20 all over the earth by a red dragon, China. They've already raised 2, and you've already seen them on social media platform all over the world. Go to Google or go to YouTube, and you'll see they raised the plasma sun 7 months ago. That's a biblical prophecy unfolding. Massive one. They removed from the Bible.
Okay.
With more light, power, and energy, and that more light and power and energy is deceiving and demonic, and that's what's happening all over the world. They're using that light, power, and energy.
Aaron, same question. Your thoughts on people, they talk, both of you reference the Bible. Some people are like, Bible is fake. And, it's been written so many different times and
good luck to them.
Comes from, there's ancient texts that predate the Bible that have similar stories. And so what's your thoughts on, the Bible and, that was Jesus here? And, what's your thoughts on that question overall?
Great question.
Can I just say something, Aaron, for a second? We've had 5 resets, right? There are 5 catalyst events, 5 floods. So when people say they're confused about this is already being disclosed. The Aborigines are always right about this. Their story is exactly the same in history, right? That's repeating itself. But we were reset. We had a reset. We had 5 resets. We had a reset from Atlantis. Same thing happened then, flooded. It's all coming out on mainstream media now with the top scholars in the world. We've had plenty of resets, man.
All right, thank you. So, great question about the Bible. I speak of things from a quantum mechanical perspective, and if you get to know quantum mechanics, they say story creates reality. And when you do your research, there's been no bigger story on it. Most humans have learned how to read on the Bible. And so the reason why this is quantifiably important is every time a human reads the Bible, they're emitting with every exhale chemical molecules of consciousness that build a quantum unified field in this realm, the causal realm, from a psychological perspective, right? Psyche means the spirits who form and animate the being. And so when you get to know the causal realm, the spiritual realm, the Bible is the main script for that. So I call the Bible the most prominent quantum script. That's a That's a physics fact. And so what we have to
Can
remember.
I just say something, Aaron? I agree with you because all the physics in the world agree with what you're saying right now. They're all going for the Bible stuff, and they've all put the all piece together. NASA and everyone uses the Bible all the time, so it is a true fact. Sorry.
So here's the important thing to do, though, is to remember that we can't idolize it. And the whole thing was written after the fall, right? The fall occurred when Adam and Eve chose to know that which is not good, or quote unquote evil, which is an inversion of the truth, right? Because this whole universe is made out of this beautiful love story, the unconditional love that's shared between divine light and divine darkness, ether and plasma, sunshine and dark energy, feminine energy. So we have to, and what's so cool is in the first 3 verses of the Bible, Moses wrote about this, right? And so what I would say is be careful with the Bible, because anything in the Bible that's not life-giving and loving is unlawful, period. And I told this to our world leaders, because this knowledge I was shown by the Holy Spirit that deciphered the original sin, showed us the original law, that is to only know good, only know God in all things, gives us supreme sovereignty. Because when you're knowing and when you know something, you're leading them back to what they are. Meaning, I've led the physical Antichrist, known as Lord Jacob Rothschild, George Soros, David Rockefeller Sr. at the time. I've led these guys back to God and into dimensional ascension. So I know you can do it too. The only reason why it didn't stick is they gave me 2.5 years to try and see if you all would listen. I used Facebook. They said I was leading a love revolution on Facebook. So I was using Facebook to try and convince the world, the 99%, to do what I did, because we could have avoided COVID and all of this trans stuff and everything else, because they know Christ has returned. They know it's all of us, but we have to be the Christ. And the Christ is the cosmic crystal of unconditional love, coming from the great central sun, who is Abba Father, the local sun, like Jesus said, he's the morning star. That's the sun. And you could say Venus is the morning star, whatever. Venus, Saturn, everything's made out of sunshine, plasma. Everything, all spirit and all matter is made out of, like Tesla said, luminiferous ether. That's enlightened darkness. All right. So the Bible is this most prominent quantum script. So we have to acknowledge it, and we have to demand that we cannot fulfill any of it. Like tribulation is unlawful. And I told all our world leaders this, because they told me I've earned supreme sovereignty with this complete knowledge of God that I'm gifting to you all. So we all need to reclaim our supreme sovereignty with this complete knowledge of God, knowing that all there is God, the greatest good. And it's literally the reason why the Bible leads us into a wedding party is because that's what the entire universe is. Everything in this universe is sacred energy exchange, aka SEX. Everything. And so when they speak of marriage, they're actually speaking of the sacred union, because consciousness itself is constant reproductive intercourse. That's why this word know in the Bible references intercourse, because we're procreating on a chemical electric level with every single word and name spirit we think of, because they're entities. And that's why we're sun gods of word, is because when we create a word, we create a different entity than the sun, an individuation of the sun, which is pure unconditional love, and his beloved. We have to remember, it's the sun and his beloved, the universal womb of divine darkness, right? So when we know that as a fact, you all can use this truth in a courthouse and own supreme sovereignty over the judge and everyone else. And you could have that judge arrested, like David Wynn Miller has in the past with quantum grammar. This is quantum law. Because when you know the universe is made out of nothing but unconditional love, anything in that courthouse that's breaking that law is fraudulent fiction. And you can call that out and own the show. And the moment Earth does this, we will be set free from this mental illness of conditional love / feel the word Eve ill, right? Eve is that which comes before, and ill is a mental illness. So when you have that cognitive thought that comes before the action, that's a mentally ill, conditionally loving thought, you've got no sovereignty. And at the moment we just know that collectively, we can disarm all of this insanity and the transhumanism and all that, because all it is perversion of the truth. And the reason why the bar, British Accredited Registry, won't let me in a courthouse is because this truth right here that you all can use implodes the whole legal system. Legal is about undoing God's law, because it's fraudulent fiction. It's a bunch of English word magic to fool you into thinking it's real, when nothing but unconditional love is law. So I hope that helps.
Okay, next topic was something that Matt commented earlier. He said justice is about harmony and vengeance, self-satisfaction. Thoughts on that? We can start with you, Kim.
Well, vengeance, something I've never lived in my life. It's not a word I've ever familiar myself with. I know people use those tools, but because I walked through the life the way I did, it's just there's certain things inside me that I just never entertain, right? Turned off to, switch off to. It's the same with all the BS going on in the world, all this bullshit going on. I just switch off to it, mate. And I've learned to do that like millions of people, thousands of people have like me, because people like me are not on social media platform. You will never find anyone like me here, right? Go hard and see if you can find some, because people like me do not come here, right? End of story. Real, genuine people like me couldn't be bothered sitting here. They just switch off to every one of these things and even entertaining it, because if you entertain this, it bothers your DNA. It disturbs you. And it's best to switch off and live your life and live it to the fullest and go back to your childhood and be who you are, right? And, like you just got to keep going the way it always did and not entertain all this BS, because if you entertain it and you're scared of it and you're going to try and control the whole world and how you're going to fix everything, everyone wants to be a hero and fix the whole world. Most people can't even go back to the moral state and fix their DNA. I suggest everyone just stops and takes a good look at themselves, right, and go back to your primal state so you can create the tools, and then everything comes automatically. Trust me, that's one thing I know. Your information comes through with sevenfold wisdom and knowledge, and everything comes in a heartbeat with adrenaline. You don't need to ask questions because God guides you with the gift of those abilities. And trust me, that's one thing I've come to learn. That's one thing I've come to learn with a lot of people in the world. You do not need information how to fix the world when you can't even fix your own backyard. When you can't grow your own food and fend for yourself and stand your own sovereignty, you should work on that for a moment, because all people depend on is the same BS and the same system. Everybody's blaming everyone for killing us, right? Oh, they're killing us in our food. They're doing this, they're doing that. Really? Aren't you responsible for what you put in your own gob? Weren't you told by your mum and dad what to eat, or by the doctors? We've always been told what not to eat. So if you want to consume rubbish because you're too lazy to cook your own food and grow your own food, whose fault is that? To run around and blame everyone for killing you or doing this and doing that, let me tell you something. Everything in this world, right, the only thing the reason it hurts you is because you gave consent to it. You relied on the system and you rely on everything they give you and everything that they want to entertain you with. I don't. I don't. I'm sent here on social media platform 3.5 years ago when I finished writing my book for this very reason. I hate social media platform. I hate people that text and pretends they love each other and not in real life. I have a real relationship with real people, right? Every day in my life, right? And I couldn't be bothered with this BS because it's not happening here on social media platform and information. I've got genuine friends by the thousands that follow me, right? And they don't even want to talk on here. They're just watching me here because they've known me for years, right? But people like me don't come here. That's why I got sent here, right? Because very few people with my history do not come here. Thousands of people from the underground world that lives by the vineyard world, they couldn't be bothered entertaining this world because they've been watching it for 45 years. We knew when Google came out, 45 years ago, we knew people were going mental. And then social media platform. Look at everybody today. I mean, everybody just wants to make a name for themselves and use the same tools to get entertainment. Nah, mate, I'm not here for that crap. I'm just coming here to send messages the way it really is. And people don't want to live in the real truth. Well, listen, that's why we have the experience of wisdom and knowledge, and that's why we create miracles. That's why we resurrect and you don't, right? Because we use the basic common sense with the basic tools and not the constructive system to confuse you even more. And I don't agree with any confusion and frustration using new modern technology, new languages, and all this BS, because you know what? You think about it too much. All that construction with all this wording, you think about it too much. That's not what real love is about. Love is tough, right? It's tough love, man. And sometimes you got to go and kick mud in your own face. You know what I mean? You just got to deal with things and see it for what it is and move on, right? Stop entertaining this BS, right? Back 40 years ago, everything that you consume today, everything that's happening today, it was happening 40 years ago. We knew that back then. We watched it on mainstream media with all the documentaries, how they're trying to deceive us with 5 senses on TV commercials. Like a Coke commercial, and then you want one, and then you want one, right? That's how they do the marketing strategy. That's why they design you on reverse psychology to be what? Competitive. And what's the most favorite tool everybody uses? Competitiveness, because that's what marketing strategy is. To be selfish, egotistical, and competitive. Far left, far right. He said, she said, I'm better than anyone. Debate, debunk, divide. That's all everybody wants on social media platform. That's why we don't entertain this crap, man. Fuck that. People on social media platform are nuts, man. Right? And they can't even fend for themselves or cook their own food and look after themselves, and they don't even know how to love themselves quickly. And you know what? The father will tell you this in a hardcore way, not with soft chocolates and roses. He wants you to be a man. He made you a mastermind, not a dickhead. Right? And we have to understand that. This is not the image we're creating, what we see in the world today. Are you fucking kidding me? Go back 45 years ago and compare yourself with the person back then. Everybody was loving, compassionate. Everybody knew each other everywhere. We had 1,000 friends. We had our windows open, our doors open. Now everyone's a spineless cows with their door windows and shut and can't even talk to people in the streets anymore. On social media platform they can because they take drugs. That's why 90% of them take drugs and lie about it. And it's a proven fact on DNA evidence. They can't function in real life. They just speak shit all day. Well, back then we were connected and our front doors were open, our windows were open, and guess what? Today there's 68% less murders, 38% less violence, and you think it's worse? How come everyone's so weak and got their doors shut and don't have faith in anyone and can't even communicate in the street anymore? We're real humble people. People don't even know their neighbours and love their neighbour anymore, yet alone their enemy. How many people goes into people in the street and feed the people on the street living on $2 a day? How many people go down there and save those people and look after them suffering? No one does. Why didn't you go to Africa and save 16,000 people that's digging the cobalt mines to feed your fat system with your new phones and new computers every day? And guess what? It's proven now more than 8 billion phones are thrown away yearly that are not even broken. Not even broken. Oh, I want a new car. I want more of this. The whole Western civilization consumes 7 times more than 45 years ago and thinks 7 times more. And they will not change. They will not do what certain people do in this world that's tapped into nature and really doing this, changing the circumstances. Everybody wants to save the world but can't even save themselves. People should learn to really look within themselves and do something about themselves first and learn how to love themselves correctly so they can love others and live by the vineyard rule equally, because they can't do that. They will not give up the system. That's why they're concerned about cloud swap and Great Reset and blah, 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 because that is the system they're so controlled with. Get out of this fucking BS. Honestly, get a grip of yourself, man. Honestly, it's a good piece of advice from a father. Get out of this BS, man, and grow up. Honestly, take a look at the whole fucking Millennium Mason, the BS they entertain every day. Do you think men and women were like that 45 years ago? I can tell you now, go back 300 years ago and they'd fucking laugh at you and throw stones at you. That's what the Aboriginals do. They say, white men crazy, white men God's crazy, because they are. And if you can't face that, you can't wake up from it neither. There's too much BS and too much, model language and new scientific theories and all that. And I'm not saying you're wrong or evil, not at all. But seriously, what do you think happened to the great wisdom and knowledge here? Never come to your own conclusion with reasoning. And that's what you're designed in all the Western civilization. Go look at your documents. You're designed to come to a conclusion with reasoning. Why is that? Don't you have faith in your instincts? No, you actually don't. So when you come to a conclusion with reasoning, what else do? You think you live in your own truth in a bubble, and you manifest your own truth, and you mentally resonate with them. Well, didn't it always say your mind plays chicken games and you become your own worst enemy? We taught that for thousands of years, right? Now, I know my kids are perfect and brought up right. All 4 of them, or 5 of them, they're brought up perfectly and don't get inverted and don't use any of the tools that anyone else does. My kids are perfect, man, and they use every moral ability to their maximum capacity. They don't need the system. They don't need a marketing strategy. They don't take drugs, and they're not criminals, right? So we know who the kids are that's got inspiration, encouragement, that's been brought up right. Not to be on social media platform and think too much and too much study and all that. And in fact, what have they really done in real life? What have they done for nature? Nothing. They still consume too much and speak shit all day. And these are facts. If we can't wake up to that, we never will. And I have to say it because God's put it in my heart like this ever since he chose me. Men are not men and women anymore. That's why you're declared in post-human states, and the last human being born was born in the outback of Australia in 1960. We can see it in your DNA. And if you don't believe that, go and get a DNA test at Unifed right now, and I'll prove you wrong. I'll prove you wrong. None of you can do your 6th sense of the maximum capacity. My immune system is 27 times more powerful. Let's go and have a test. Let's go and have a test in your immune system. Let's go and have a look. The reason there's 1,000 Unifeds set up all over America is because American damage is so much. There's more than 1,000 Unifeds set up in the last 2 years because NASA's forced to do it. To fix the DNA. Well, if you haven't got your 6th sense, you don't know what you're talking about. That's a fact. We only use it 1 to 5%. End of story.
Aaron, same question. Justice is about harmony and vengeance, self-satisfaction. Your thoughts on that?
Great question, Matt. So my thoughts are, listen to the word. Justice is just us. And true justice does bring harmony. And this justice we've been knowing that's unlawful, like remember, anything that's not life-giving and loving is unlawful. So imagine what we the people can do when we rise up and speak the greatest truth, which is love is the only law there is. And so when harm has been done, remember, if we're killing 50 to 300 billion cells in our bodies every day, there's no crime we're not guilty of. Like, that's as bad as the devil himself, right? So again, we're all the Christ and the Antichrist. And so the best thing humanity could do right now, collectively, especially the 99%, because you 99%, you are the missing link, for real. Like, the big brothers and sisters, the most powerful people on earth, they're all watching you to see how you respond to these truths, I guarantee you. And when you receive these truths, that love is the only law there is, and you stand in them and speak to them to your friends, everything will change in this world. The unlawful justice of white hats versus black hats, or good versus evil, or whatever, all that stuff, that's the only thing keeping the world from being saved, truly. And so all that we need to reconnect humanity in the love that we're made of is for the people to come online to a truly harmonious justice being served, which is about rehabilitation. Like, I've already decreed. Could you imagine, y'all, just so you know, like, I've had the most powerful people on earth tell me that this gives us supreme sovereignty. So what I've decreed is, like, all these courthouses, they need to be turned into like God spots, where we rehabilitate everyone who needs to be rehabilitated out of this mental illness of conditional love. Because really, the only cause of all suffering, disease, and death is conditional love within, that gets, when we agree with it, it gets expressed externally and inflicts harm on those around us and internally, right? It's all a reflection. It's all us. And so that's what I love about that word justice. It's just us. It's all of us. And like the law of God says, love truly keeps no records of wrongs. Love only wants to rehabilitate and restore everyone to our truly eternal life-giving, loving nature. So that's my answer to that question.
Angeline had a question here earlier, and I think this was more directed to what Aaron was saying, but she says, why is dark energy feminine energy? Don't both masculine and feminine have light and shadow aspects? And then she asks here, why do you think the feminine will not give you the devotion they give Jesus and admit what they did, Aaron? So these are some questions I think directed towards Aaron here.
Very good questions. Thank you, Angeline. So first off, that first question, the dark energy receives the penetration of light, right? The masculine is the projection, the thought projection, the ray of light, and the feminine is the receiver. So when you look out into the night sky, and it's wild, because like if you look at the Milky Way, I've got a photo where it looks exactly like the gateway to heaven that we all came from, right? Our mother's birth canal. And so the feminine darkness receives light. That's why I speak of the feminine as dark energy. And yes, we all have it, right? Any body is a womb, right? If you're a body, or any vessel is a womb. And that's why, like, the name woman has both, right? She's the woman, because she can receive and project. And that's what birthing is, right? That's why woman is the ultimate powerful being, right? Another reason why I feel they named Eve Eve is because before the light was the universal womb. And it's overlooked because it always was there, always is there. And so, and also Earth, the reason why Earth is so infatuated with this masculine God is because Earth is the feminine, Mother Earth, and this local sun is her beloved, the Father, Son. And so that second question again, can you show me that question again? I'm sorry, that question about Jesus.
Yeah, here, let me find back to it. We got lots of comments. We got over 100 people here watching. and
Nice.
live on all our different platforms. So we've got like we're probably at 500 or 600 comments. So she said, why do you think the feminine will not give you the devotion they give Jesus and admit what they did, Aaron?
Okay, so this goes back, y'all. Angelina and I have had some wonderfully deep conversations about this pattern that's been going on between the masculine and feminine that was initiated in the story of Adam and Eve. And that is that before he was created, the Elohim gave Adam this law to only know goodness, right? Imagine if we all just stop and imagine if we all just only knew goodness and own the fact that we're gods of word and only let words be good and life-giving. Like, done deal. Like that, we would be saved, right? It's only when we come under the spell of not good. And so this question she's asking has to do with the feminine who had this distraction, right? This black serpent on the tree simply symbolizes the deception of conditional love. And instead of, Eve listening to her husband, which symbolizes the sun, Adam was standing for only knowing goodness, which look at the sun, it only knows goodness. It like smiles and adores us all day, every day. And so the feminine got distracted with this deception of conditional love. And that's what caused descent from divine dimensions. And so, that devotion she's asking about, earth is the feminine. And the moment we devote ourselves in the embodiment of love, like the sun embodies and shines his adoring love on us, we will all enlighten and ascend. There's all the physics in the world that will affirm this. That's all we're waiting for, is the divine feminine earth, the bride of Christ, to simply reflect the unconditional love she receives all day, every day.
Thoughts on that, Kim?
Well, actually, I I can go into quite deep about the female here. The female's got far more power than what a lot of people give credit for.
Not just
Female-
credit, but not just credit for what they've done to the female. They've, in everything that they've done, they've submersed. They've put everything down. The female second class, couldn't vote, couldn't do this. When the female has got the divine intelligence of creation, and it's really a travesty that they've inverted it so much to get us out of harmony.
This is where like things are so inverted with these things in the Western civilization all over the world, right? When you go back to the real indigenous people, and I'm talking about the real ones, not the bullshit that we talk about, because Africans went through slavery for many, many years. They had a hardcore time, and we only know certain things about them, right? When we go into the Mayans and we go into the Australian Aborigines, right, the Hawaiians and that, the Samoans, right, the indigenous people from New Zealand, right? When you go right back into their history, it wasn't like that, right? The women had just as much power, but they were always the ones that carried the maternity instincts, right? They were the mother. That's why a woman today, a lot of women don't realize this, right, today, and I think it intimidates the people, right? It intimidates people with these facts that we know biologically. We have a cycle change of life every 7 years. You know that. Our organs renew every 7 years, etc., etc. Well, every when a woman's 21, she's one cycle ahead of a man already. It's a proven fact. That's why a lot of women, when they're like, by the time she's 28, she's 2 cycles ahead of a man, because his maternity instincts. She's mature. A boy, he's 55 and still a big kid. You can take the man out of a boy, but you can't take the boy out of the man, right? And there's a reason why we always said that, because females are a lot more mature, right? And they think more righteousness, and that intimidates the man. Well, a female, by the time she's 28, she's 2 cycles ahead of man. That's why a lot of females and males who are very intellectual, they always have a 10 to 20 year span between them when they're 30 years and older, because intellectually they communicate with that span, right? Most women, when they have a boyfriend around the same age, right, the most famous thing that women say is, "Oh, fuck, he's mature," right? It's the most famous thing that women always says, because it's a fact, right, that a man is immature compared to a woman. And that intimidates men, right, that they have this maturity and this maternity instincts that we don't have, because they've got powers that we don't have.
Does it also have to do with their intuitive state? How women are more intuitive, they're living more on that sixth sense.
Everything about, like, my mother was the best woman in my life, because my dad was an atheist and a dickhead, right? He brought me up to be to make me think I was worthless, a piece of shit, and never man up to anything. But my mum stood by me, right? And I go into a lot of videos about these stories about mum's always the best woman in your life. She's always loves you unconditionally, right? And that's because she's always full on with her intuition. She always is, always has been. That's her maternity instincts, right? And she always treats you like her own child. You know what I mean? And same with anyone. She has those maternity instincts. Yes, she's always used her intuition a lot further. And that's the way she's embedded into her DNA to use those tools. That's why she's far more mature and far more intellectual. And that intimidates mankind. But Jesus makes a very specific point about this, about his mum. You know, that everything about him was about his mum, right? That's why he didn't have a dad, right? Okay, he didn't have a dad. He had 24 chromosomes, 23 from his mum, one from his dad. That's proven evidence now with DNA study done, right? When they found his germ and the blood inside his germ. They got that blood and done a DNA evidence, and that's also been released as well. But who was his favorite disciple? You see, here's something interesting. They moved 7 books, right, of the disciples. They only got 4 in the Bible. There were 7 more written, right? They were removed of 17 years of his life, of the footsteps he wanted to follow, because they talk about that. Who was his favorite woman? You probably heard many stories about Jesus was hooked up with Mary, right? And possibly had kids with her, right? Well, when he resurrected, what happened to him? He went into another country and he lived with Mary. And that's a funny fact, right? And
some people believe that he went to France, that he actually left there and then went to France, and actually his bloodline is still intact.
Well, his bloodline's continued through progenic genes, right? It always has, right?
What are progenic? What are progenic genes? Like, if you can define that.
That's code in your DNA. That's your forefathers. All your forefathers going back, right? See, like, okay, you got your mum and dad, right? And then you got 4 grandparents, right? Then you got 8 great grandparents, right? And that continues to multiply. Okay, every time you go back one set, it doubles with your foreparents, right? So every one of those foreparents is coded in your DNA. That's why Jesus said we're all blood of the Lamb. But what people don't understand is that we are different forefathers. We were created in God's image, right? But who was creating us? The angels were. You know, you can see that with Jesus. Jesus was created with what? An outside influence in reality, right? So was Noah. So was 19 people that's being hidden from us as well. It's not the only one. Well, we see that in catalysm events in the previous timelines as well. There's been a great reset. There was many other people born without a father. The Australian Aborigines and 24 civilizations and the Hawaiians and the Samoans, right, and the Maoris in New Zealand, well, they were always saved in all the catalysm events for 100,000 years. That's why they're the old civilization. Every catalysm event, we got wiped out because we keep following forefathers' footsteps. And we'll get wiped out again. They will know that. We all know that. So does the white Western civilization. The people that's really been chosen right now, they're all talking about that. The real God people, right? They're saying that they know the Western civilization get wiped out again like they had the last 6 times because they keep following their forefathers' footsteps no matter what comes out of their mouth. It's not to mean that they're evil or anything like that, but they don't realise the tools you're using, they're still full of greed, power, and temptation. They will never give up anything to save the Indigenous people and those who live by the Vineyard Rule equally. They won't. They certainly don't live by the commandments. See, people can say what they like, right? But your action speaks louder than words, no matter what you say. You always show who you are through your action and what you really support, no matter what you say, right? And that's a fact. I recorded with evidence in court that I gave 90% of my money away, more than $70 million. I brought the highest death toll from heroin, cocaine down and the highest gang killing. I know what I've done is recorded evidence, right? And they're the tools that I use and I live by them. I've always been saving people and I've always lived the same way. But what have you done? What has everybody else done? What have they really done for nature and life and the things that we're in harmony with? What have they really done for other people's suffering and sinners? This is where we really can bid the difference, because I know most people that speak on social media platform hasn't done jack shit for society, only speak shit and entertain people. But seriously, not many people really have when you get down to the crunch, right? Well, we're supposed to be like that. We're supposed to help one another and love one another no matter what the circumstances are, no matter what, you know?
Aaron, you had something to say?
Yeah, I just want to respond to that, Kim, and I just want to encourage everyone on social media. You have incredible power to actually save the world simply by using your words to lead all of these greatest fears and all these people behind these agendas back to God and into ascension, because I swear to you, they all know it's happened before and they know they can go again. It's been the people rising up and knowing all this evil in them and wanting to kill them or serve justice that makes them want to kill everyone else, right? There's this polarity still, or it returned after it was dissolved, this polarity between good and bad. And when the world didn't listen that we can dissolve all this, they resumed their agendas, and that's when they rolled out COVID and all that. So I'm just telling you all, we can end all this, especially on social media, which those who own it, like Zuckerberg is a Rockefeller. And I was speaking directly to, on Messenger, David Rockefeller Jr., and he was talking about his wonderful platform and affirming that, I've been sharing this complete knowledge of God on it. And I just want to encourage you guys, you have all the power. And when you take on this role as the returned Christ that you all are, we're all the resurrected Christ. And when we be the unconditional love of the Son and say, we just want to lead all of these mentally ill aspects of ourselves back to God through Christ, you'll save the world. I guarantee you. It's been done. It didn't last because the world didn't really catch on, but you can all turn this all around. I guarantee you. And that's all I want to express to you guys, is you guys have all the power.
Trish is asking, Aaron, could you please speak your belief on reincarnation? I feel it was left out of the Bible on purpose.
Yes, it was. There's a documentary. They might have pulled it though. It was called The Indigo Kids, and it was giving account after account of beings who died. One guy died jumping out of the World Trade Center and came back as a kid, and had full account, like recall of it. Another guy was a kamikaze pilot, or a guy that was shot down by a kamikaze pilot, and he was like, I think he's 7 years old ish. Remembered his sister from his past life. They looked her up. They went and met with her. He remembered all kinds of things from his previous life. So yeah, I do believe they pulled that from the Bible. And I do believe that souls do keep coming back until we learn our lessons to ascend.
Thoughts on that, Kim?
Yeah, look, I got one really powerful thought on that. And I suggest everybody, right, have some faith in what's been created. In 1989, on the 22nd of December, my brothers were involved in the biggest road accident in Australian history, where 36 people died. It's called the Gautschi bus accident. You can Google this up. It's a horrific accident that stopped Australia. That day, 36 people died. He was the most critical injured in the McCarthy's bus. His wife died, and 20 people in his bus. And I really suggest you put faith in this, because God created this evidence. So he gets flown up from Port Macquarie. He went into Port Macquarie Hospital. He gets flown up to the PA Hospital in Brisbane, the most critically injured. He was under Dr. Wright. Dr. Wright was the first heart and lung transplant surgeon in the world, the first one to create this transplant. He owns his own ward on top of the PA Hospital. Now, the head of Queensland Mental Health Board also happens to have its main office in the same building. Now, my brother was in a coma for 3 weeks, and then he flatlined. Okay, and he flatlined, and then he woke up about a minute later, and he woke up from the coma. Then he went into a ward right next door to the intensive care unit. He was there for 4 days. Over the next 4 days, something mythological happened, and my whole family was there. We thought he had a gug on the head, but he seemed to be perfectly normal, except for a 30-second event where he looked up into the corner of the bedroom and started talking to someone. And he said goodbye to someone, and he said goodbye to a first name of each person. Now, the first day that this happened, we called Dr. Wright in, because he was still his doctor, and they called the psychiatrist in, which was Queensland Mental Health Board. And so they watched this for 4 days when he said goodbye to 19 people. Now, what's astonishing about this was that after he said goodbye to 18 people, they were doing a survey into this and looking into this, where he went on that bus in the middle of the night, only a few hours before the accident. The accident happened at 2:30 in the morning. Him and his wife was going to Newcastle to spend Christmas with his mum and dad. Her mum and dad. They were only 22 years old and just had been married for a year. And Kathy died in that accident. Now, when Yan went into the ward, we were told, please don't tell him about his wife yet, because he was very critically injured and he might have a relapse. So they just said, try to avoid it for the time being until he gets a bit stronger, right? Well, we expected Yan to ask us about Kathy, but he didn't. He didn't ask us for 4 days, and we thought that's a bit odd, that he didn't even ask about her, and we didn't tell him neither about her being passed away. So anyway, here's this event for 4 days where he said goodbye to 19 people. And when he said goodbye to 18 people, they confirmed and came back with a confirmation that every first name she could buy to was the first name of every person on the bus. Now, Kathy was one of those people, you know, if heaven exists, she'd be the first cab off the rank type thing, right? And she was the last one that said goodbye to him. And he came back. She came back and she said, this is what she said. She said that the driver went to hell. He was responsible for the accident. There's a lot of mitigating factors into this that I won't go into. And she said that she was the only one that went to heaven and the others were stuck, and they were lost and are getting another chance. Now, what's ironic about this is my brother did not talk to me for 27 years because most of the family was atheist, and he buried it. But here's something interesting. Dr. Wright, who never believed in life after death, he had committed his whole life to saving people. 2 years later, Dr. Wright was at the bottom on the cancer floor saying goodbye to patients on the bottom floor that had 1, 2, 3 months to live. And I saw him down there. I said, what are you doing down here? He had his own ward upstairs. He said, Kim, he said, you know, that was confirmation. I know that confirmation. I know I've got to save people before they die and not after they die, right? You know what I mean? And it's interesting to see someone change his belief system so much that didn't believe in life after death. So what's extraordinary is my brother doesn't talk to me for 27 years. And I've gone into a lot of this about what happened on the 27th of February 27th January 2017, because 2 events happened where mythological events happened, fully recorded with evidence. And this is one of those days where many things happened that's beyond mind belief, but fully recorded. Well, that day, I had to ask my brother. God said, ask your brother what he hasn't spoken to you for 27 years and demand that he tells you. 2 events like this happened, one with my mum as well, but I won't go into that right now. So I went up to my brother and said, hey, why haven't you spoken to me for 27 years? All right. And he all of a sudden went into a shock and started saying, wait, I remember now, Kim, and I'm spinning out. I got the shiver in my spine and tingles jumped down my body, right? And I'm thinking, what's going on here? And he says, Kim, do you remember when you died in 2012? Because this is 2017. I said, yeah. He said, you know, when you went into that dimension where everything was perfect, no pain, stress, and fear, and a time when time stands still and life preserves. I said, yeah. He said, I went there, Kim, when I died, when I flatlined. Do you remember when I flatlined? I said, yeah. He said, I saw Kathy, the love of my life. And she said, I had to come back because of you, Kim. She said, I had to come back because of you, Kim. I had to come back because of you, Kim. And I'm freaking out. So God told me he created that to prove that we are in a reincarnation trap and we don't know who we are. And those 18 people got another chance. But that was in 1990. Now we're coming into a new timeline where every person that doesn't wake up from amnesia and discover who they are will be stuck in a reincarnation trap for 1,000 years like they always have. Right? And those that wakes up from amnesia goes in a new timeline where they do not get stuck in a reincarnation trap and goes in a timeline where 7-fold wisdom and knowledge live with the tree of life. So you've got to have the thirst to wake up and not be stuck in a reincarnation trap and know who you are. And God created this evidence, right? And if you don't have faith in that, bad luck. That's not my problem. But I don't believe in what anyone says in the world when I know God created this evidence here and it's recorded. And one of the biggest scientists in the world or surgeons in the world, he changed his whole belief system because of that. You know what I mean? But I think that's a confirmation that we are stuck in a reincarnation trap. And he wanted to let me know that we have to wake up from amnesia so we're not stuck in that reincarnation trap for 1,000 years. A lot of people are talking about this in the oldest Bible in the world. It says loud and clear that you're going to go into a bad place for 1,000 years, and and others are going to create superhuman abilities to the primordial state for 1,000 years, right? And Doris Delane talks about this. A lot of professionals and old people with great wisdom and knowledge, old men of renowned wisdom and knowledge, they talk about this, and so does indigenous people. Oh, they just go back into a dark place again for another 1,000 years like they did last time. That's what the Aboriginal says. White man crazy, white man God crazy, always go dark 1,000 years. 5 times, and we got 5 catalysm events where they've done the same thing. Always inverted, never wake up to what they're doing, get stuck in amnesia in such a way that they get stuck in the reincarnation trap for 1,000 years. And we get to live with the tree of life for 1,000 years while they're gone. While the planet becomes perfect, right? No more radio waves, no more nothing. I know that. I've been in that timeline. And it's beautiful. It's just beyond words, man. It's fantastic. I've been into the timeline in the future, and it's fantastic, man. It's beyond explanation. It's beautiful. Everything's gone. Every modern technology, all radio waves, all that BS, it's gone, man. You wait and see. But there's only 100 million. I can tell you this. I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. Only 100 million people is going to be saved and going there because most of them just not going to wake up. You're going to follow their forefathers' footsteps no matter what. And I'm pretty confident about that. That only 1% of people is really going to go into that new timeline, because when you go in there, there's nobody there. Time Traveler 227 represents that. And if you go into this, you see the top scholars and scientists of the world can't explain this. They're talking about that all over the world. They can't explain Time Traveler 227. And I keep saying that represents an I'm Legend. It represents a Mad Max in the New Promised Land. And I've been in that timeline, and nobody goes there, man. Practically no one goes there because they don't get it. They just don't get it. Enoch explains that we go to the high heaven and everyone else to go in the other 5 low heavens. And I believe that myself.
Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left. I wanted to talk about the balance of the masculine and feminine inside of all of us. They've been using chemicals to put hormonal imbalances into people. The plastics, they put in a lot of estrogen into the cans to flood everybody with estrogen. You've got a lot of guys thinking they're girls and girls thinking they're guys. When we have a balance inside of us, when we do have the masculine and feminine, but we've been taught the masculine men has got to be masculine, rah, rah, no emotions, can't cry, and the feminine is supposed to be weak and submissive. And, this is the out of balance that I think that we're in. So maybe we start with you, Aaron, if you can talk about the masculine and feminine. Is it in each and in every one of us? Should it be balanced? Should males be masculine dominant? Should females be feminine dominant? Or is it, different depending on, like how Kim said earlier, everyone's different here. So everyone's going to have a different balance inside of them, or should it be balanced?
Yeah, I'd like to answer the question. Isn't the most refined being able to embody the full spectrum of the polarity as needed, right? For us to show up in life, and especially eternal life and divine dimensions. I personally want to embody the godliness of the divine masculine, and yet whatever need I encounter, I want to be able to have the full spectrum of being available, because there might be an infant who needs mothering, nurturing, and I want to be able to provide that, because that's what a true divine being does, right? We're omnipresent, omnicapable. And so I love to really cherish the beauty of masculine and feminine polarity, because like this distortion we're seeing, no one is going to like this. This is a huge spell they've put people under to think that trans and all that is a good idea. And the good news is that the moment we all focus on ascension, all of that will be repaired subatomically in the blink of an eye once we reach resonance with the Son and his beloved, unconditionally loving darkness. So, it's this gift of masculine and femininity, the gift of duality. I call it divine duality. It's the greatest gift ever. And in no way are we to dishonor this. Really, the only issue we have in our existence, y'all, is dishonoring the fact that we're in the most beautiful divine love story ever known, for real, universally. And the moment we stop and simply honor the fact that breath itself is this intercourse with heaven, and just imagine heaven itself is the greatest good, because everyone's in this greatest, most enlightened state of consciousness, and we're honoring it. We're honoring the fact that every expression of our being is literally impregnating the womb space of our surroundings. That is the feminine. And for me as a man, the way I've been able to unconditionally love our world leaders like I have is I remembered that it's all a reflection and like their cells in my beloved's body, right? Every soul is a cell in the universal womb that is the woman. And so when I love my beloved, my woman, I see her as the all that is. That includes everyone. And when we can really do that together and really realize that the universe has gifted us a physical being to love who's made in the image of God, who is the all it is, the universe. And when we can literally love them the way, like love the universe the way we want our most beloved to be loved, we're rocking the greatest law of God ever. Because, that greatest law of God is to love your neighbor as yourself. And I added to that. I up-leveled it because Jesus said to do better than him, right? I said, a lot of people don't know how to love themselves. So I said, let's love our neighbor as we want to be loved ourselves, but more importantly, how we want our most beloved to be loved. And that, to me, y'all, like, just, that's heaven. Everyone loving each other like we want our most beloved to be loved. That's, to me, the divine masculine and feminine embodied at its highest potential. And we were to accentuate, like, I want my woman to be able to be that mama bear if she needs to be, right? That masculine, that woman. That's hot to me. And I want her to be able to be the most tender, soft, receptive feminine. And I know she wants that of me as the need requires. So yeah, that's my answer to that question.
Trish said, agape love has always been the answer.
Mm-hmm. Love is always.
Your thoughts on that, Kim? I'm just going to read Angeline's comment here first. Angeline says, the masculine seems to give and impregnate the feminine, where she then has to have her body change forever and painfully give birth and raise a being while always feeling inadequate. And now, on the average, the masculine gives without responsibility and then abandons the feminine and demands admiration. Many were given what they never asked for either. So I don't think that's the masculine and feminine, what she's talking about. That's from men and women and, in general, right? But I think we're talking something different, the masculine and the feminine inside of each and every one of us. So I wanted to know your thoughts on that, Kim.
Well, see, this is where I come from, a whole different walk of life, okay? Because when you're in the underground world and you're an outlaw, right, you hang around real men, not fucking pussies. Like, I'm talking about real men. And real men take care of their women realistically, right? And those women honor their positions. They love being who they are when they have a real man in their life that has got genuine masculines. I think a lot of people are very confused about masculine today. I think that, everything's inverted so much when we think about things and judge things. Look, I've seen people from my walk of life, like the Indigenous people, where the women are classified as being someone special and looked after with the utmost respect and honor. And people's lost that complete concept in the whole world today, right? And how they think about these things, they've lost their mind about that too, right? I mean, a woman, right, and a man both have a duty in a masculine way, but when they connect correctly in their primal state, the way it used to be, you don't have congruent divide. You've only got to go back 100 years ago where 97% of marriages made it to the end. Today, 87% can't even make it to the first 7 years. Proven fact, no relationship stays together because everyone's too egotistical and judgmental. Today, men run around with tits on them and skirts. They're not even men anymore. And women run around with fucking balls between their legs. I mean, come on, man. You know what I mean? Like, a real man takes care of his woman, and a woman loves being taken care of by a real man. That's a known fact. 90% of women always goes after drug lords and people in the underground world. Go and look at Oprah Winfrey's shows, right? She had a special documentary about her first 3 boyfriends were drug lords, and all the friends was one drug lords. Like, you go any neighborhood in the world, most of the cheerleaders around the neighborhood always goes out with the criminals because they're men. They stand up for them, and they'll punch anyone's head, and they give them bad mouth. And women love that. A man with inspiration, encouragement, and a good sense of humor. And where do you think you get the best sense of humor and inspiration from? You don't get it from the normal Western civilization. You get it from people in the real world, right? And, we also have a great sense of humor because we don't live like the rest of the world. We take drugs and numb ourselves, right? And we have fun. We live it up. We ride motocross. We get into drag racing. We do all these things. We become real men. And women love that lifestyle when they're giving a man that follows his heart and follows his passion and don't let anything stop him, right? Those women are the greatest women in the fucking world, man, when they're with the right man. End of story. That's what I think. People's completely lost that concept today. They've got no idea what they're talking about. Real women that I've seen in my life are those women that looks up to real men, right? Most women don't know what a real man is anymore, and that's where we completely lost our mindset with everything, right? Well, in the biggest amount of research, this is where you can talk about the inverted. Gay society and child sex has gone through the roof. It's proven that atheism is an aversion and a confusion and frustration. It's now proven in documents. Okay, so the biggest amount of research in the primary time that we're in now, mental disorders and gene defects has gone through the roof. Gene defects, 93% of people die from stress-related diseases every day. So what does the evidence show here? Well, mental disorders, gene defects, and every gene defect in the world that's escalating, and cancer defects, and everything everyone's lying from, is body cells going corruption, curse, collusion. And when your body says corruption, curse, and collusion, you're not in the right mindset, right? End of story. So we've got to go back to the primal state for that very reason, so we can think with our intuition correctly and our sixth sense. And when we do that, trust me, we never had a problem with anyone knowing who their sex was, or a problem with this masculine. Oh, I said, she said, I don't like him being a man. I don't want to be a woman. Everyone's confused about being a man and a woman, and no one likes it. I mean, if you went back to the primal state, you would never question these things because everything comes automatically and organically when you think with your natural organic motor skills, but people don't, right? Most people talk about this stuff. Most people talk like this. They haven't even got fucking kids. They don't even know what it's like to be a parent, yet alone a grandparent, right? You need to talk to elderlies with wisdom and knowledge that has children and has real children and brought them up right, and also grandchildren. They can answer these questions better than anyone else on social media platform if they don't have kids and they haven't brought them up in the right in this world. I can tell you that right now. This kind of subject should be off limits to anyone until they've had kids and brought kids into the world to be good kids and not suffer the consequences, right? And women and men that's done that and got grandchildren and brought them up right, they're the ones most experienced to comment on these problems. I don't think anyone should comment on this unless they had children. You're not a man till you have a child. It's a proven fact because you're number one in your world. In everything you do, you always save yourself first. If you go on a plane that crashes in the jungle where there's no food, 99% of people will eat one another when they run out of food. It's a known fact. Even Christians and everything's proven over and over again. So you always think of yourself first, right? When you have a child, you put someone else first, and you really understand that meaning. And it's not until then that you put somebody else before you and you'll die for your child. And you have to have a child to die for a child, that you'll die for your child, right? And that's a concept that people don't understand until they live that experience with knowledge. They can't even qualify to judge on this unless they have children and they know that feeling instinctively with genuine experience, wisdom, and knowledge. And I think women are confused today with all this stuff that's going on, and I don't blame them. But if they were really brought up in the right environment with the right people and not all this psycho programs all over the world, they would never be confused about this, and they'd love to be a woman and understand how important a woman is to us. Men don't value women enough in this world today. That's what the fucking problem is. They don't even value themselves. But if you're a real man and you really take care of your woman, trust me, there's no confusion about these things whatsoever. It's only confusion in the last 40 years, for God's sake. There's never been a confusion. Everyone's so confused about all these subjects because everything's inverted so much and so much fear and so much stress and anxiety. But you know what? At the end of the day, most people don't want to fend for themselves. They don't want to grow food. They don't want to be a man. They don't want to be a woman. They don't want to be a kid. They don't want to do nothing because they're too fucking lazy. They're too judgmental and egotistical. Oh, my body. Oh, my decision. What is all this crap? Grow up, man. Be a man and a woman and stop this BS, because you know what? 45 years ago, there wasn't one fucking idiot talking like this. That's what we've got to wake up to, man.
I wanted to ask, well, this was a question towards Aaron, but it's to both of you. So we'll start with Aaron. So it's Trish asks, could Aaron possibly speak on the role of Mr. Trump is supposed to play to help lead people back to the truth of love, if any? I'm trying to understand that dynamic. So that Mr. Trump, the white hats, the whole, narrative that there is a group trying to help humanity. Thoughts on that, Aaron? And then we'll get to you.
Yes, great question, by the way. And this applies to all people who claim to be standing for good or, saving humanity from these agendas that reflect what we do to ourselves, right? Straight up. So that's where we have to start, is take responsibility and ask ourselves, what kills people and what kills ourselves? It's the knowing of evil. So what did Trump become? Sadly, that old masculine role of coming in John Wayne style and calling all the evil out, what did it do? We can see cause and effect. It inflamed it and made it way worse. Human trafficking skyrocketed. Evil on earth skyrocketed. And, I was telling Angeline, and it's been hard for people to believe, but like I had these guys who are behind it all, like the current King James, Edmund James D. Rothschild, who owns the monetary system on paper. Right after he friended me on Facebook, he posted this picture of the Lion King of Judah. I'm tagged in it. And it's because the Lion King of Judah, which we're all a part of, that's the God, the greatest good, overcomes evil with good, with the law of God. And I personally did that, and it literally led into dimensional ascension. And so what Trump and the good guys could learn from that is that when you know evil, look at the cost of the method of the old man, like the fallen man, knowing evil. We've had immense loss of life and tremendous harm. And I've said Trump's security detail for him and his family is probably the highest ever on earth. So Trump became the biggest target on earth because he came under this original sin spell of knowing good and evil, when he could have done what the Holy Spirit showed me to do, which is say, hey, knowing evil is the only mental illness there is, because Trump commits all the same crimes inside of his bodies that all these criminals he knows about does. Because when he thinks those thoughts of the crimes, he puts his neurons through the full body experience that genocides them. So we have to all wake up to this. Now imagine if Trump would have done something like made an international announcement like he's good at doing, and instead of at all his conventions like babbling on about all the evil, he could simply state, we're dealing with a collective mental illness that we've all had since our descent from the Garden of Eden. You know, imagine if Trump like went straight up biblical. And you know what? The best thing we can do is overcome evil with good and stop knowing it, redirect our reality to the fulfillment of God's law, which is international wedding parties. Because wedding parties, that blissful, loving emotion, does trigger dimensional ascension, which will recover everyone from the grave. All who have died will come back, and all this mental illness will be over forever. We won't need money. We won't need this quantum financial system, because in divine dimensions, we can thought project anything into being, any divine desire, I like to say. So it's like, imagine if Trump were to come out with that kind of an announcement. Nothing would save the world quicker than him addressing the fact that he too is guilty of these great evils, because again, everything we know about, we're becoming one with. When you cognitively think in your heart and your mind a negative thing, an evil, you just became one with it, and you've inflicted that same evil on your children that are your cells. And if you look at your cells, y'all, they're literally tiny little beings that have organs, and they're like little beings like us. And so that's why the Bible says we're made in the image of God. And that's why in physics, they say everything is a fractal reflection. It's all one. And we're all doing this together. That's why we all need an intervention. And just say the best medicine, the best remedy for this reality is to get into this wedding party story. The whole point of the Bible is a wedding party. Imagine if all our churches were like federally, state, and locally governed and funded and facilitated the biggest, most epic Babylonian royal wedding parties. And like, remember, we have to lead everything back to God. So like, let's make, like, remember, Lucifer wanted to be the best God in heaven. I said, do that. Like, I told the CIA directly through Facebook. I'm talking to all these cats, right? And so I told CIA, what, because they're all into alchemy. I'm like, what could be the most epic alchemy than to turn this whole thing around by having the biggest villains become the biggest heroes? Lucifer wanted to be the best love God. Rock that. And what could be more epic? So like, we the people, we could motivate that, because they've considered it, and they will do it if they see the people push it. So that's my answer to the Trump question. Like, Trump could be so powerful if he just aligned with God's greatest laws regarding evil. Because what does it say? Love your enemies, do good to those who despitefully use and abuse you. When I've done it. It works. It really does. It's crazy. And people say, oh, Babylon wrote the Bible. Of course they want you to love it. But you know what? You break the mental illness spell of evil when you genuinely love people and say, you know what, y'all? You too want in on this wedding party. Everyone wants to be there with their ultimate lover, their wife, husband, and spend eternity on universal honeymoon adventures. Do we not? I mean, I don't know a better good news story than that. And good news is the gospel. So let's rock that real story, that real gospel.
Your thoughts, Kim? Did you want me to repeat the question?
About Trump?
Trump and Q, these, like the person said.
I will not get into Trump and Q, because there's a lot of things that people don't want to hear about Trump because they're on a narrow-minded belief system. But there's some dark shit behind Trump that people will not live in the truth about. When he signs up with Fauci in 2019 to do with the vaccination before it unfolds, you should be concerned. When he invests half his money to Moderna, you should be concerned. When he goes to private function with Bill Gates, you should be concerned. When he brings in the warp speed and vaccination, you should be concerned. right? When he stands on the social media, on the mainstream platform and says, oh, if I was president, everyone would take it. They'd love me and do as they're told. Fuck me. He doesn't even stand up against the vaccinations. He supports it and invests his money in it and has private function with Bill Gates. And you think he's a savior? You got to be fucking brain dead, man. He's been an evil motherfucker his whole life. For 25 years, his partner, right, was the number one person that fueled ISIS, right? And his partners, right, in Russia was the Russian mafia, right up to 2016. There's a 2-hour documentary made about all these things, right? He's always been evil. The first time he made his money, he ripped off $980 million, declared bankruptcy, and America looked after him because 5 years later, it's worth $5 billion, didn't have to pay it back. He's never paid tax in his life. He paid $750 so that when he donates $1 million like Bill Gates does, right, with offshore accounts, they get tax deduction, 100% tax deduction when they donate money. That's why they pay $750. That's why RS, you know, the RS, the what do you call it, tax, it's trying to get him now because he don't pay $750 like he does every year. He rips the people off, man, always did. He's never paid tax. He's never given a fuck about anyone. How anyone could think he's a savior of whiteout? Fuck me, he's a politician. He's a typical fucking Babylonian beast. All he's cared about was money and rip people off his whole life and support ISIS with his partner for 25 fucking years and work with the Russian mafia, for God's sake. He took the Miss Universe to Russia all the way into 2016. Then he had to cut ties because they were going to put him as a president and make you think he's a white hat. Fuck me. I don't know how people can be so brain dead on this subject. I'm sorry, but I get straight up about it, right? Because I know people fall into this Babylonian beast and all the politician bullshit. God's never chosen a politician in human history. Not fucking once. And he's never chosen anyone who's religious neither. Not once. Never once in human history. So why do you think these cocksuckers are saviors? I don't know. Anything to do with the military, which is Q, is Babylon. Everyone knows that. Anything to do with military is Q, it's Babylon. God's never stood for Babylons or anyone with military or Q. Right? I mean, fuck. Q doesn't even exist. It's just a big Paul dick. Doesn't even exist. It's BS, man. And everyone falls into nothing but BS. What did Trump do? He didn't do nothing. He had 4 years to do something. He didn't do shit. He didn't do nothing. He could have done a million things. He spoke shit like every president does. Let me tell you something. Blue and white works together and always have. Everything's just a deception. They do the same rules and regulations and support the same system. And so did he. He supported every same system and didn't change a damn thing. Blue and red's always been a deception, right? You know, a lot of smart people tell you, don't ever fall for the blue and red bullshit. They put on a show for you, but they always implement the same rules and stick by them. Always have and always will, right? I'll tell you what Trump did. Trump started to redo oil again. That's what he did. He started opening the pipelines and more consumption, made America richer again and broke people's back and put them in slavery. That's what he did, right? Oh, yeah, everyone got rich in America. Yeah, they fucking did because he made sure that everybody hurt more again. Then he signed out the G20. He signed out of helping humanity. He signed out of G20, the G7, the whole 9 yards because all he gave a fuck about was America and selfish, egotistical, judgmental behavior and the capitalism. That's why he took all the fucking money and he set up a structure for the last 3 years so that Jeff Bezos and everybody got rich, man, right? Everybody got fucking filthy rich in America in the COVID-19 because he set it up. He set it up and you think he's a good person? How come there's more people living on the streets in LA and all over fucking America today, right? Because of those 4 years. In 4 years, he put 17 million people in the street living on less than $2 a day. And you give credit for that? He put more people behind fucking bars. Let me tell you something. He gave kid fuckers an immunity. And then the military guys that shot 19 kids over in Iraq, he gave them immunity after 3 months. That's the kind of person he is. He gives those motherfuckers immunity and he caused more people to live on the streets than ever in global history. Right? And you think he did something good, did he? Well, how come there's more people suffering on the streets and he caused that? And you give him credit when he supports Moderna and invests his money in Moderna. He supports the warp speed and you think he's a hero? Have a look at your streets, for God's sake, and have a look how many people became homeless in that 4 years. Take a good look. Everybody knows there's more tents in the streets of LA and all over the fucking country than there's ever been in history before because he made sure it was that way. Sorry.
Well, thanks for telling us.
People on the street that suffer. I defend people on the street that suffer, man. I don't defend on the Babylonian beast and their capitalism behavior They don't care about people suffering in the streets. I do. That's who I work for. That's who I help. That's what God put me in the mission for, to save the sufferers and those that are suffering the most. That's what Jesus always did. He never supported Babylonian beasts. Never. Never once in history has he ever supported a politician. Sorry, but I get angry about this because God puts it in my heart to make sure you know and get it through your thick skull, because I'm not going to play games here with chocolates and roses. Don't think for that 1 minute. God doesn't work that way. Real love is tough, man, to get it straight and go back to the vineyard rule and live equally. And that requires some serious dedication around here and doing something about it, not just speaking shit on social media platform. But I guarantee you 90% of the people following you and following me, right, they will not change their way of life. They'll consistently feed into the Babylonian system while thousands, actually millions of people are in slavery, right? That's why 14 countries just shut down. Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Venezuela, 6 countries in Africa, because they're all in slavery. And until you change your system and your behavior and your way of thinking and consumption, it's going to keep going. Because everything about the new marketing strategy and the whole new world order is to keep those countries in slavery. And that's what people don't realize, right? The New Earth movement, the World Transformation Movement, the ARC, they're doing something about this. They're massive platforms putting in boycotts to stop these. Do you know why countries just shut down? Because they got rid of the politicians. You know why? Because America paid them to fuck their people up. And that's over. That's why America's going down. And the dollar's going down, because they can't stop their capitalism behavior. That's why these countries collapse, and that's why these politicians had to abscond, because they're selling their own people out. They do it in New Guinea, they did it in Australia, they do it fucking everywhere. They still do it to this very day. And they won't stop their bullshit. And while people turn a blind eye to it, you're not doing nothing to help humanity, and God knows that. Not when you turn a blind eye to these things that are the most important things on the earth right now, is to save those that live by the vineyard rule equally and 2 simple commandments. And it's not the Babylonian beast. All right? Trump is a Babylonian beast. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think. I've been around this fucking planet long enough to know what a man is and what an idiot is. And I have to say it how it is. If you can't go back to your primal state and understand what the vineyard rule is all about and be in tap with nature, then you never will be. Because you know what? You can talk about this, but do you do it in real life? Are you tapped in with nature? Are you out there doing something in real life really about it and about people suffering? Probably not. Probably not. And that's the truth. When you become a real man and a woman and you start doing something in real life and real love and compassion, not just speak shit, real true love and compassion means that you've got to do something about it. Your action speaks louder than words. Your words don't mean shit without the action to back it up. It doesn't matter what comes out of your mouth. Your words don't mean crap without the action to back it up. And that's something we do. We back it up with real action, not living in some bubble, right? And that's what God expects from us to do, to stand up against this evil fucking empire, right? And fuck them. And fuck anyone that believes in the system and anyone who wants to be a spineless coward. Because you know what the Bible says? The only reason we're going to fail is because everyone turns a blind eye and they're too spineless. Godless, immoral creatures all over earth pretending to be having a spine. They don't have a spine. You can see that by what they do every day and what they program people into to entertain themselves. And this is going to happen. BS. Take a good look at the world today. You know, you've been living in a fucking delusion for 45 years and you still won't wake up to reality. You think it's all going to change? Pig's ass it is. It's going into an extinction and they're not going to stop because they can't fucking change. That's why Jeremy Goose says that 93% is beyond the point of return. The top bowlers in the world said they're beyond the point of return. They can no longer think instinctively. And when you don't listen to that from the top elite people in the world that's moving the world transformation movement, you're not living in any truth at all. 93% of the Western civilizations beyond the point of return declared on documents, and that matches revelation. Post-human stage. And you know what? Everyone says, oh, no, not me, I'm awake. Post-human stage, everyone will be deceived to one degree or another. Only the elect won't be, and no one believes in that. Well, the elect is teaching the world transformation movement how to think instinctively and think outside the mind with the intuition. And if you start understanding that, you've got to start practicing. You really got to start practicing, because when you do that, you have the power, right? The principality in the right place, you have the God-given power. And it requires some tough love, and it requires some real confidence, not to be weak, right? And we all have to stand up and do something about it in real life, not speak shit on social media platform all the time. All this bullshit about loving this ascension shit. Peter's been saying this for 25 fucking years on social media platform. Where did that get us anywhere? It got no one anywhere. It's just fucking all talk. I know people that's doing something in this world, and I know people just talk shit all day, right? And so does God. God's not a fucking idiot. He's not a fool. He knows those people that live by those words, and not those people that just live by the word itself, but those that actually lives by it, right? And I'm sorry, guys, but I have to be confrontational about this because I know something. I know those people speak shit all day. They don't actually do anything about it. They just pretend they are. But you know what? They don't have a movement behind them at all, right? We have a massive movement. The World Transformation Movement has moved 45 million people across the whole world. With 15,000 top scientists, with Joe Dispenza, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Winoff, right? David Icke, all these people on every platform, the ES systems, the Unifed molecules, that's what's being moved with the World Transformation Movement, in case you don't know. There's more than 1,000 centers set up all over America, and that's the World Transformation Movement that's moving all over the world. That's actually doing something. And I don't see anyone else doing anything, just big shit all day. But we bring people free really free from the human conditioning. And that's what the mental disorders are, being free from the psychological behavior. Just because you don't suffer psychosis doesn't mean you're not wrong, because you think invertedly and use the same tools to put yourself in a bubble and continue to use the marketing strategy. Everything's used to the marketing strategy. When you know you're using those tools, you're feeding into the marketing strategy and using the same inverted tools. And you know what? That's what immoral is. That is what is wrong. To make people soft, weak, spineless cows so they can't fend for themselves. Well, that's what the world's been doing for too long, right? It's going back to be a man and a woman again and appreciating who you are and appreciating life and what life's really all about. It's about love, yes, but 8 tools of righteousness, and without them, you're nothing. You're nothing. You just speak shit.
So it's okay. Did you want to respond to that, Aaron, or did you want to get to the last question?
I'm not sure what that. I didn't recall what that question was, but
No. But to respond to Kim, we were just discussing with whatever he was saying. Did you want to respond to him at all?
Oh yeah,
get to the last question.
Yeah, just that we can do this process harmlessly and really through this oneness, and just realize that all of what I'm telling you guys is recorded by NSA, the Akash, and everything else. This world was given a harmless ascension timeline, and it's by recognizing that we're to lead all things: Babylon, Lucifer, Satan, blah blah blah. Lead it all back to the unconditional love we all came from, and that's all I'll say to that. Because really, that's the harmless timeline.
Okay, last question here, and we'll start with you, Aaron. The system. This comes from Wanda. The system is broken beyond repair. Do we, the sovereign people, abolish it, or create a new and different one? Like, where do we go from here?
Good question, Wanda. And for me to have witnessed literally the heavens start to glisten and sparkle with ascension, like that's the system we need to focus on, right? The true systems are what happens when we simply harmonize with the unconditional love of divine light and divine darkness. Because when we do that, just like you can see on those vibrating platforms we call cymatics, right? When you hit certain hertz of frequencies that are harmonious, life-giving and loving, they create perfect geometries. That's what's going to happen to the subatomic structure of the system of our body and the system of the universe, because this whole universe is a body. And if you look at the unified field, it looks just like our neural network. And so when we're harmoniously living in love as the divine masculine and feminine, and I want to speak to what Jolene mentioned, because she was speaking to in the experience of the feminine, where a masculine will impregnate her and just kind of leave her on her own. Like single mothers are a big issue. Men have not been showing up too many times. And I want to speak to like both polarities here, because the systems are all based on this immediate family system, right? The masculine and feminine, the children we produce. And that system functions on laws, right? Laws are agreements. And when you, again, look at the universal agreement, we're to, like Romans 8:28, I literally would quote that scripture in front of being sworn. Like I had these swarms of agents, family members of the 13 families, the big brothers and sisters. And I would quote that scripture and I'd see this blanket of peace come over them. And just like, oh my God, how epic would it be to actually work, Babylon's together with, whatever you want to call the good guy stuff, right? Like imagine the Antichrist and the Christ coming together to launch Earth into this ultimate ascension. And that's what we do with our systems, is we just cut the blah, 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 and just say, no, we're here to live the most radical life ever. The common law of man is do no harm. And the only way to do that is to live in honeymoon love, based on Bruce Lipton's book, The Honeymoon Effect, right? The only way to stop cellular disease and death is to live in honeymoon love. And that's why I can't get off this like whole point of the Bible, this wedding party. We're all meant to be living in blissful love. So if the whole law of God leads us into this wedding party, that's what all our systems need to focus on. And we, the people, like I've said before, the ancient axiom of law that says that which one creates, one is to control. The only reason why our government and systems are so corrupt and such a mess is because we, the people, for one, haven't been taught that we're meant to control it. And we've been taught the opposite. So we need to wake up from that and do so in a loving way. And really, the more we approach this like a family would approach a family member who's got a mental illness, like with this intervention energy of true love, we don't want to see this world keep self-destructing. And we need an intervention, all of us do. And we come in with true loving energy and say, hey, we all want this infinite blissful reality that we can have when we simply use all our systems for their original intention. Remember, all government was built by the assemblies, which became the church, to fulfill God's law, which is a wedding party. So I can't think of anything better than we, the people, simply piping up about this and call your local and federal government, state, local, federal government. Get on the horn, use your words. The Bible says that the Christ, who we all are, will save the world with their words, because words create worlds. Words are action potentials. And so when we agree, the way the people, to have the best fulfillment of God's law, wedding parties, we get that if we insist on it. So that's what I recommend with our systems.
Okay, and you, Kim, Wanda says the system is broken beyond repair. Do we, the sovereign people, abolish it or create new and different? What do we do?
I personally believe that everyone's going to be in for a massive roller coaster ride, because the whole world's preparing for the extinction, right? And like, people just don't believe in it. You know, you didn't get 7 million people buy property down in Australia for nothing. You can read this in a million different documents. Go to the Great Reset, go to the New World Order, go to every single thing implemented in the world, and you see that every document says we're going into massive extinction and everything's going to be completely abolished for 20 years. Every document says the same thing, right? And when every scientist, professor at NASA, and everyone's acting on this, that's why they're going underground. That's why they built the cities underground. They're moving 600 ton of food in there a day. That's why 11,000 top scientists on the mainstream media the other day is moving down under. That's why the Pope moved $2.3 billion into Australia, built the New Vatican. That's why so many things are happening. When you understand that what the elite and all these people have actually been doing for 20 years, and you're not believing in that, then ask yourself, how can you fall into every deception going in the world while they deceive you, right? So you don't know what they're doing, right? I find that astonishing, right? I mean, the planet's going into extinction. More than 50% of the animals died over the last 50 years. No one cares. More than 50% of the bush has gone over the last 50 years because no one cares. As we become inverted, right? Two people inverted, right? They don't make love. When they don't make love, they get a child that's inverted. That's why population's gone out from 370 million to 8 billion today. 1.8 billion only 120 years ago. Because the more sex you have, the more inverted children you have, right? And that's why 93% is beyond the point of return, because they're inverted and they don't have a sixth sense. And that's how they're created. That's why they're confused all the time. And they're all selfish, egotistical, judgmental, and want to believe in any other belief system that suits them fine. But how come they're not following the simple path? And also the things we warn about in the Bible that the elect people's talking about in the world today, because they made a move. The top scientists in the whole world moved to Australia because of this, right? The biologist lives in Australia. All the top scientists in Australia. NASA's in Australia with Area 51 and Pine Gap, in Pine Gap 51, Area 51, NASA, right? And also CIA and the NSA. The system runs out of there. Why do you think they're all running out of there? Why do you think they're all moving down there? Why do you think they are? Because Australia's the only place, right, for the last couple of million years that's never been extinct, never gone into extinction. But every other Western civilization has had catastrophe over and over and over again, and they're going to have it again. Why do you think there's no earthquakes and volcanoes in Australia? Because it's a promised land. It's represented in Mad Max. So that's why they're moving down there, because they know that, right? And that's why they're deceiving the whole world, because they don't want you down there. Well, ask yourself why Scott Morrison stood at the UN and said we're leading the new world in, and they're giving them that authority. Why do you think he said we're moving 30 million people, inviting 30 million people into Australia? No one's acting on it. Well, why do you think they've got preppers all over America and why everyone's going underground? Because they don't act on it neither. Well, everything's going into extinction, and it's a known fact. You don't believe that? Let me explain something to you very carefully, right? And it's very important you listen to this. You lost between 40 and 90% nutrition value in food. You lost 13% quality in the oxygen, 22% quality in the water. You still don't believe in it? You still don't believe in climate reports? Then listen to this. In 2019, you had 550,000 cattle die in Australia in one go, 80,000 horses and 2,000 camel. What happened? They had a glitch in the system. They lost their power with nutritional value. So what happened 5 months ago in Kansas? 560,000 cattle died the same way. What happened a month later? 650,000 sheep died in the Middle East the same way. Birds flying out of the skies all over the world. What are you seeing on social media platform right now? Animals going around in circles all over the world in farms by the thousands. And in Africa, 1 kilometre wide, zebras and antelopes running around in circles. Animals around in circles. What do we know about that? Well, animals have the most powerful sixth sense, don't they? They can feel things when a tsunami's coming or an earthquake. And what do? They run away so they don't get sucked in by it, right? Well, we lost that ability. We have that ability too. I can feel them coming, but you can't. And I know that for a fact. We can feel those things, right? And right now, the animals are going around in circles because why? Because when you go back into the history and you see when the mammoths was wiped out, go and take a look at Siberia. They're still pulling tusks out of the mammoths there every day. They're still there every time it thaws out. They're still pulling tusks out. And what are the tusks there for? Because they're all going around in circles. And we can see that in several locations. The last time we got wiped out. Now you've got animals going all over the world and Mother Nature screaming out. And you still think the world's going to come beautiful? Do you still believe that? The pole shift has been moved for more than 3,000 kilometres. The pole shift and all the magnetic fields have moved everywhere. You know what I mean? Mother Nature is taking over. Mother Nature's going to have a catalysm event, the sixth mass extinction. That's warned in Revelation, and they all know it. And the animal speaks louder than words, right? And that's what I consider. I suggest everyone pays attention to wildlife and the animals that are going around in circles right now. Farmers are reporting 30,000 sheep going around in circles for 30 days because they lost their sixth sense. Why have they lost their sixth sense? Because it's proven that we have 50 billion volts in our body, and when our sixth sense is not working, we spread the negativity, and Mother Nature depends on us. That's why the animals and everything's fucked up, because Mother Nature's screaming out for us to get our sixth sense back, so the animals don't confuse the noise nature. But we don't care. We just keep consuming and lying all the time. And there's the evidence from those powerful events in modern history. Animals are dying all over the world because of this and going around in circles because they're confused and frustrated, just like the people are. And I just think pay attention to that.
I want to start wrapping it up here, so we're gonna just leave your guys' final thoughts, some words of inspiration, some positive.
What do you think about that, Aaron? Can I just ask?
Sure.
What do you think about that, Aaron?
I don't believe
what do you think about the animals.
Oh, the animals?
And all the nutrition quality going, and everything dying all over the world, and then animals going around in circles. What do you think about that?
I think there's been a lot of electromagnetic interference. I believe that all of this has progressed because there's been a consent, and I don't consent. I don't consent to anything that's not life-giving, loving, and we've got to stop this. Like, we the people have all the power, and so we're not going to consent to an extinction. We're going to the best of it end this mental illness, and we reclaim our power as gods of word, gods of story. Because all this is a crazy story, you guys. Humans are stuck in a story when we're meant to be gods of it. It's all upside down. We've let these crazy stories control us. You say it's all in documents. I don't care. If it's in a document and it's unlawful, that's fraud and fiction. And we got to call it, and we got to turn this all around. I've done it before. We can do this. Like, all I've needed is us to do it together. So let's not, like, this podcast is about reclaiming our power. Let's reclaim our power, not give it away to any document or story or Bible or anything. Because remember, anything in the Bible that's not life-giving, loving is unlawful, period.
Can I recommend something?
Mm-hmm.
You know, one thing we discovered in cell study research, right, and especially with DNA research, right, I was under this study for more than 18 months, right? You can go and look at all the documents, right? In 2016, I went under a major study down there. And what's important is that when you live by the primaries, you're basically your principality in the right place with those right tools. What happens is that we know our body cells gain corruption, cause collusion, but what we will also discover when you live by those tools in the right way, your body cells, you become the god of your body cells because your body cells are your children, and they live in a community level where they work with one another, right? So by living in a community environment, which means no governments and authorities, it means by your natural organic primordial state and natural motor skills, your body cells does the same. Your body cells love one another, business burdens, and repairs your DNA and immune system and creates the molecules of immortality. So when you live by it, that's what happens to your body cells.
Let me speak to that. So government means mind control. If you don't control your mind, you create autoimmune disease and all that inner conflict between your cells. So government is very important. We're to be self-governed and mutually governed. And the only law we're to govern each other by is this law of love. So we always want to intervene where there's an absence of love and bring love, because that's the only way to create homeostasis in the body that heals it and brings that beautiful, like you say, mutually beneficial community of our cellular biology together in its rightful, eternal life-giving resonance, which again is this emotion of living in honeymoon love. So, I mean, there's no better remedy right now than to use all that we've got in quantum momentum, because again, this Bible is the biggest quantum momentous script on earth, and it leads us into a wedding party. There's nothing that will save and heal this world quicker and better than fulfilling that. And that's what all our governments are for. And all we need right now, the only thing that's missing is the people coming together on this most agreed upon script. Scripture script. It's a movie. Yeah, let's fulfill only the lawful aspects of this script and the best ones. Like God is the greatest good, right? So the only true laws of God are the greatest good. International biblical wedding parties and eternal honeymoons, I can't think of anything better. If you can, please speak up, because we need that. That's all we need.
Go ahead,
Can I
Kim.
recommend something?
What's that?
Can I recommend something to everybody out there before we go? Look, something I've come to learn, okay, through my walk of life, like I said, in prison, when we lived equally in there, like the indigenous people do, I come to learn something through that experience, right? Something very simple. You know, Jesus said how to govern life is the vineyard rule. So I suggest everyone pays attention to the vineyard rule, how to govern life equally, with two simple commandments, to love one and the business burdens, because that's how simple life really is. You understand that right with the 8 tools of righteousness, you don't need to know everything else because it comes automatically. And that's the truth. So simple.
Yeah, and can you share, people asked about the 8 rules of righteousness. Can you share those?
That's loyalty, honor, respect, moral, empathy, inspiration, and encouragement. They are the 8 tools that all children masterminds, indigenous people, and the godfathers in the underground world, they use the same tools, right? It's always about loyalty, honor, respect, moral, empathy, inspiration, and encouragement. It always has been. And that's why those tools are embedded.
I can't quite understand them all. Can you say them slowly, please?
Loyalty, honor, respect, morals, empathy, and remorse, inspiration, and encouragement. They're the 8 tools of righteousness. And we feel them. We feel them. We're given the gift to feel them in our primal state. And those rules, when we live by them, that's our principality in the right place. That's why it's always been about righteousness. When we have those principalities in the right place, that's what makes us a loving, moral, compassionate creature in the right image, right? Because we have those frequencies. Yeah, beautiful.
Brother,
and the
I couldn't agree more.
No, it's so simple.
Because when we embody those principles, we naturally earn sovereignty to have influence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the encouragement.
So love those. Yeah.
And beautiful, we get confronting. We have the power to get angry. And, you know, like people think that people are angry like me, but fuck off, man. We're not angry. Are you kidding me? We just got balls because we're not afraid, right? And God gives you that gift, not to be afraid, and say it how it is. If you don't like it, fuck off out of the way, because you know what? I'm not going to change the truth for anybody. You know what I mean? That's how it is. And we've got to have that encouragement, because the women like to have the same encouragement. Of course they do. Everybody does. And your son would like to have that encouragement too, right? To be strong, right? And not to be weak. And I think it's an important thing to always remember that. Those tools of righteousness makes you not be not be afraid of anything. Fear is what you have to conquer to be in balance and be in peace. Peace is the most important thing in harmony.
let's be honest, to us collectively as men, there, to me, in my experience, there's nothing women have longed for more than the safe haven that heaven is. So I just want to speak to the collective masculine in the woman and in the man, because really the man and woman has the biggest influence on the woman, and that's her cognitive thought projection. So whatever the woman is telling herself, that's the masculine within her. And when I speak to the woman, I'm speaking to all of our bodies, right? Because our body is a womb. And so the greatest way we can be in our power is to use that masculine form of the conscious mind to tell the subconscious mind, you are safe. You believe in the greatest good that God is. And when you embody like these 8 principles that Kim just beautifully shared, when you embody true righteousness, empathy, and I always say empathy is the key to divinity, because truly, when you fully empathize with what you have feared in a life-giving way of empathy, don't come under the oppressive fear of it, but say, hey, if I was in that position, what would I want? When you do that, you totally transmute that fear. Like, I like to lean into my fears, face them, and actually overcome them with the superpower of love. It works, y'all. It works so radically. And what's great is that kind of empathy is non-toxic, because you're in the action of compassion and love. And Joe Dispenza, by the way, he put on the sensors that could read what these Tibetan monks were doing. He asked his buddy who knew the Dalai Lama and said, hey, give me your best Tibetan monks that can do like levitating and superhuman things, right? Pass through walls. And they measured the frequency of energy that they were putting out. And Joe Dispenza defines it as compassion. And so our superpower is having compassion on everything around us and leaning into it. Don't be afraid of it. Any fear you have, lean into it. The divine feminine, what does she do? She hugs everything. Really, that's what darkness does, is it's hugging all the thought forms that we call light, serpents of plasma. Like, look at plasma, it's a serpent. And she hugs it all with her unconditional love. And anyone who's in fear, if you hug your fears with unconditional love, you will have no fear, and you will not do harm to your body, because you'll be operating that compassion that is your superpower.
Can I just bring something up too while we're here on the subject? When you talk about, the Tibetan monks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, something I think everyone should know, that, Enoch took Jesus to the monks and the Buddhas in China and in India to learn how to master his mind. That's the Shula masterminds, okay? And I want everyone to know this, right? Everybody in the world knows this not long ago, right? Bruce Lee was the fastest man in the world that could move 7 times faster than anyone could think. Now, in a short punch, he could lift a person 9 feet into midair. That was double his body weight, and he barely moved. That's the power that God gives you when you master your mind and you can move 7 times faster. The guy that he lifted up 8 feet into the air, midair, I mean, he only threw one little hard punch, right? Just one little hard one, and he's only half the body weight of the other guy, right? The guy wasn't that heavy. He didn't have much muscle, so he had the power to master his mind and move 7 times faster than anyone could think. A Shula mastermind, okay, with 7th Dan and dedicated to his life, he can fight 12 guys with black belt karate or 1st and 2nd Dan blindfolded, and they can't get him.
Yep.
That's the power of the 6th sense, right?
Yep.
When you master your mind. So you can move a lot faster than anyone can think. And that's an ability we have, blindfolded, with your eyes wide shut, because your third eye is always shut. It's always
And he's
shut.
using
The power.
He's using that power we know as chi, that force that is the force of God. And see, when we, like you say, become a master of your mind, don't let outside thoughts control your mind. You control your mind. You can channel that energy with unlimited powers. And that's how we reclaim our godhood, is to become the master of your mind. Mind means body of thought, by the way. So be the master of it and direct all your thoughts back to the greatest good that God is. And you then harmonize with what God is, and you have that power. That's why in these laws of attraction teachings, they talk about the synchronicity is attained through living in the vortex of pure positivity. That's simply living in the vortex of God's golden ratio. That is the chi of all time. So, yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. David Icke and myself and a few people that we know, we had that vortex of information sent to us through this process, you know what I mean? But see, so what people have to realize is that we can talk about these things all day long, but the real gurus in this world, they dedicate their life to master their mind. So when people just think about information, you can kick along with that, but you'll never get too far. You might have the information, you might know, all right, but you'll never have the power unless you dedicate your life to it and really master your mind and do what these people do. Because you know what? Patience is a virtue. That's where great wisdom and knowledge comes from. Never think about death because you're not going to die. That's why monks and Buddhists and these Shilla masterminds, you know, they take years to dedicate this and master their mind, but they go off the grid as well. They can't live in the Western civilization because it disturbs their DNA, it disturbs their power. That's why they go off the grid on the mountains, man. They have to get away from people that can't use their power. It's a known fact. If you're living in the Western civilization social media platform, you'll never be a mastermind because a mastermind cannot function here. Right? So you got to dedicate yourself to live in nature and in harmony. And that's what I teach people. How do you deal with everything in the world that's going to happen? Get off the grid, man, and go back to your primal state and live up the tree of life, right? And get your tribe family together, all your spiritual family, and go start your own vineyard rule somewhere else because believe me, you're going to need it. Don't think for 1 minute nothing's going to happen in this world and everything's going to change. Don't believe that, right? Revelation tells you that. That's not what's going to happen. Trust me, everybody knows that. That is not what's going to happen. Revelation is the sixth mass extinction, and it's written on every document in the world. Trust that. Trust what the elect says and trust what the Bible says.
We don't trust anything that's not life-giving, loving, brother. Any document, especially Revelation, that's speaking anything but the greatest good is fraud and fiction. So we can't believe in these tribulation-y stories. They're just not of God.
God has a plan. God's done it before, and God is doing it again. They all know that. God's going to wipe out the Babylonian beast. Right? You can believe what you like, but he's not going to hurt us. But he's going to wipe the world out, man. And most people don't want to believe that. That's just why they live in denial about it. Well, take a look at the world, man. Take a look at what's already happened now.
What Kim was saying about the power, you know, I actually experienced that maybe 25, 30 years ago. And there was a group of gangsters. There was 5 of them that were, you know, kind of like picking on me. I was pretty drunk. And so I saw some kids from my college I was going to, Mount Royal College. And I said, yeah, I said, these guys. And the one guy kind of hit me. And there was 5 of them. And I said, there's one, and there was 4 guys from my college. And I said, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5. I go, let's go. And these were like college kids. And these were like gangsters that, well, you know, had a problem with me. And I walked up to the biggest one and I gave him a Holly Yukan uppercut punch. And he went off of his feet and landed in the bush in behind him. Like he literally, I launched this guy through the air. And then one guy had a broken bottle he tried to hit me with. And then the 4 other guys were just watching. So I had to fight the other 4 guys by myself because the school kids, they didn't want to. You know, they saw these guys and they got scared. But I didn't have anything, and nothing happened to me from it, you know, and then the cops ended up coming or whatever. But that's true power when we tap into that energy inside. Like there was, you know, a bunch of, and I just launched them. And so I know that we all have that inside of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Miracles, and isn't they call it miracles.
Yeah, and it's really that faith-filled knowing, right? That just made you say, I can do this, and you did it. And it's just like an athlete, right? When he jumps to like yards to catch that football with one hand or whatever, that's that God power of just knowing I will not accept less than attaining this goal, this vision. And that's our power, you know, and it's just the power of knowing with faith.
Okay, so final thoughts, Aaron. Leave us on a positive note, some inspiration, some words of wisdom. Let's, you know, kind of tie this all together to keep everybody in a good place.
Yeah, you guys, you know, when I say you guys, the audience, everyone here, like we're all what those most powerful people are watching. I kid you not. And once you step into this true Christed consciousness of unconditional love and have compassion on the fact that it's all us and all we need is to be redirected back to what really, look at how we were conceived. It's that honeymoon energy. And that's the only way to save every cell, therefore every soul in this universe, right? Because all these trillions of cells inside our bodies, we're walking universes. So our best solution is the 99% realizing that you're the missing link that we've needed to simply step up and be in your power. And like Kim says, with these 8, what do you call them again? The 8
tools of righteousness.
8 tools of righteousness. Those are invaluable because when we really, I like to also say the fruit of the spirit. right? The fruit of the Spirit are what comes off the tree of life. Love, joy, peace, kindness, compassion, like all of these great attributes of God. When we embody that for real, like you can say it all you want, you have to embody it, right? So when we actually embody this, this is our true power. And when the 99% do this, or, you know, a fraction of them really, because a critical mass I've heard is as little as 38/100%. And you know why that is? Or I've just made this this connection. We can only see 38/100% of the light spectrum. And that's a wild correlation, right? So like far less than 1% of the 99% is all we need to latch onto this truth and create that critical mass that triggers that 100th monkey effect. And the whole world will just domino effect into their Christhood, their divinity. And that's what all of this is about. All this chaos is to motivate that. I know it. So I just want to tell you all, especially you present as the audience, you're the missing link we've always needed. And when you do this, when you embody your Christhood and your Christ-like nature, you'll rock the world and you'll see transformation, and never come under a spell that's less than life-giving and loving. Always use the power of your heart to overcome that thought form and hug it, literally hug it. The divine feminine, she hugs everything. And that's, I mean, we were all literally hugged into being by our mother and her heartbeat. You know what I mean? So like all these, like I like to say the true Bible is in the body of God's creation. And it's, you know, scripture says, honor your father and your mother that you may live long on the earth. Imagine what will happen when we actually see that Mother Earth and Father Son are showing us how to love each other, right? Earth is like sending her arms out in big loving embrace to the sun with her trees and her plants, right? And her roses and stuff, showing her perfect love. And the sun is just shining his adoring, smiling, you know, lion-hearted love to us. That's all we need in all of us masculine and feminine beings. So that's my final words. Thank you all so much for being here. I so appreciate you all. And I believe in you all. I know you all are everything we've been missing. And when you simply own who you are and be this superhero of all time, we'll have what we have always wanted, because that's what Divine Dimensions is. Everyone is knowing that we're all called to our ultimate leadership through love. So yeah, thank you all so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. And Kim, some words of wisdom, some positive
Okay.
way to
What
leave people off here for.
What I'd really like to leave everyone with is this. You know, we talked earlier about us losing our testosterone. Now, that's lost 1% every year for 50 years. So we lost more than 50%. There's something you can do overnight. Like I do mean overnight compared to other things. A cold shower or an ice bath, right, every day, right, will change your molecules beyond your understanding and rebuild your testosterone in such a way that a 50, 60-year-old will have the bullet of a 19-year-old, if you know what I mean, right? And that's how much you can restore things like that with cold showers or an ice bath particularly. And train after the ice bath. Now, please believe me when I say this, we're not won a Nobel Prize for this, right? And you can research this. And I urge that every one of you, no matter where your mind or your head's at, doesn't matter. Go and do the cold showers for 2.5 minutes every day, every morning, and do the Win Off Breathing program, because believe me, you recreate the molecules with 7 times more positive power energy, and that's a proven fact, right? If you do this for a 30-day test, trust me, you'll be so addicted you'll never turn back, because you really activate with what? Breathing, and breathing is the God particle, right? But it's a breathing, it's the Holy Spirit. You breathe the breath of life. And that breath opens up your molecules with your neurons and all your blood vessels all the way through your body. And it pumps oxygen in to release the adrenochrome and the Christ oil, believe it or not, right? The ones we can't create. So you recreate that with 7 times more positive power and energy, and it takes you back to the mild state and think outside the mind. He's won a Nobel Prize for this, guys. And I urge that every person do yourself a really big favor and put yourself for a 30-day test in this. And believe me, you don't know nothing until you've tried this. But when you do, you see that everything in your life alters, right? And it pulls out stress and anxiety in ways you don't believe. It is the cure of the human condition, just this alone. Believe it or not. But you've got to have faith in it, because it recreates the molecules with that Christ oil. Believe it or not. Try it. You'll be amazed, guys. It's the best advice I can give you right now.
I concur, man. It's so powerful, y'all. Cold immersions are radically healing and regenerative.
It takes you through the flight mode. It takes you out of psychological behavior to instinctive behavior, right? That's what it does. It activates your body cells. with a fight flight mode, and then you do the breathing, and it takes you right into the sixth dimension, just like you create the psychedelic effect. You create all the endorphins effects. You create all those things, right? And you float into space. And a good time to pray.
And it's important to remember, we always had to do this back in the day. Anytime you would take a bath, you'd do it in a river or a lake, and in the winter, that stuff was freezing cold. So we naturally, for thousands and thousands of years, we're doing that. And in this, very gentrified reality, we've had these comforts of constant warm water. It's really important to submerge yourself in cold water. I love it.
That's why Winoff runs around the mountains, right, in bare shorts. You climb Mount Everest in bare shorts, right, and bare feet, right? Because that's what our primal state is like an Aboriginal, because you really activate it, and we're not in a primal state. That's the whole idea. If we get activated like this, that's what it's all about. It's right there. That's who we are.
So
Right?
Taffy says,
as Winoff says, the world's full of BS. It's about love and it's about believing. Very simple.
So Taffy says, what about cold showers? Are they the same? So just remember, when you're showering in warm water, you're opening up your pores, you're cleansing yourself. And so when you're done your shower, you put it to cold water that closes up all of your pores, but then, it also activates some of the stuff that Kim was saying. So, as long as, so this is what I like to do is whenever I have a shower, you clean yourself warm water, put the cold water on, and not just only close the pores, but then now you're having that fight or the flight, you're feeling, your energy, your things are just flowing inside of you. And so that's how I like to have my showers. I don't always do that, but I'm trying to do that more almost every shower that I do have. Yes, Kim.
Can I highly recommend that once a month, every 2 months, you do a genuine ice bath, right? I mean, believe me, it's mind-blowing. An ice bath will blow your mind off the skies, right? But it's so unbelievable. It's refreshing. It's beyond understanding. But cold showers only gives you a little reflection compared to a genuine ice bath, right? Now, I get people to do that at least once a month, and that really opens you up. Really seriously opens you up.
It does. And if you can't get hold of ice and you live in an area like I do where there's glacial melt off rivers, that'll do. It's really powerful.
You just jump in the river, and connecting with nature, getting out by the river, being out with the living, breathing trees, away from all the Wi-Fi technology, people's crazy narcissistic behaviors, all that kind of stuff is always beneficial. Getting out and jumping into the water. If you lived at a lake, you just go jump in the lake every AM, right? Go for a little cold lake swim.
And I think there's one thing that needs to be said here before we'll go: hug a tree. Hug a tree.
I love hugging trees, and what I do is when I hug trees, I think of their roots. I think of my feet having roots, connecting, growing my roots of my feet into the trees, connecting with the trees. That's how kind of I connect myself and ground myself through trees when I hug them. So I do that through my mind, but it's my heart that beats with the tree. So yeah, I love hugging trees. That's when
I have to tell you this story, because I know you guys will love this story. When I was a kid, right, I was growing weed, right, and I had these 6 plants, right, growing weed, and I used to go up to them every morning, right, because I heard someone talking about you talk to your plants to grow faster, right. So I had these 2 plants, and I used to go up to them every morning. Oh, my beautiful little weeds, my little babies, give me some good weed, like I love you. And these 2 plants went through the roof, and the other 4 I didn't talk nice to. They fell apart. And when that happened, I actually tried this again the next year, and I realized when I talk really nice to the plants, that grew twice as fast and twice as big. And if I didn't talk nice to the other plants, they didn't grow anywhere near as much. So it works. And you know that when you want your weed to be nice.
When I was growing, I used to smoke with them, and I said, "This is gonna be you later on. You guys are gonna be in me." And I would talk with all of the plants. I love doing that, but I'd actually smoke with them, blow it on them, and I say, "This is what the magic you're gonna create." And so that I did that exact same thing when I.
Well, you're giving them love, aren't you? You're giving them love, and it works. They know you. They know they love you. They know they love you.
100%.
That's what you learn. You can learn that as a child, for God's sake.
Yep. And remember, everything feels your love. Everything in physics we know is conscious and sentient, meaning it thinks and feels. And so send your leaves to
listen, I have to tell you this, guys. I've got to tell you, sorry about this. I watched a video the other day, right? A serious one about a guy in, oh, look, I can't remember what it was. It's in southern part of the Europe somewhere. It could have been Spain or somewhere, right? But a guy set up a system, right, with positive power to his whole crops, his whole farm. He grows oranges, and these oranges were tested. They have 12 times more nutritional value than any other orange on earth. And he's actually worked out how to love his plants through positive power and set up a positive frequency to all his crops, all organic, and they have 12 times more nutritional value than anywhere else. His trees are twice as big as any orange tree in the same time, and 10 times more fruit.
You guys,
10 times more fruit.
it's so
Amazing
powerful.
stuff.
It's
Amazing stuff.
I have a friend, by the way, who had got chickens, and she just poured love all over them. They laid eggs throughout the whole winter in mass amounts. Chickens don't normally do that. They always quit during the winter, right? She just because of her love, because feel your heart. Your heart is like the sun, and that's what makes the eggs. You know, the chickens lay eggs.
Yeah.
So love is just unlimited, y'all. And when you put it places it's needed, you'll transform it into the best thing ever.
Absolutely, man. You see remarkable results with all things in nature like this.
Yes.
If you know how to love it correctly and not afraid of it, it gets results. It gets massive results.
Amen.
Yeah, amen. Anyway, guys, been great talking to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you,
And
Jesse.
You're very welcome. I'm glad we were able to make this happen.
Yeah.
You know, this is great. I really wanted to. I thought bringing you together would enlighten people. You guys are, you know, a little bit different, but you guys
Yeah.
both have the same heart, and you know, your intention
We
is wanting to help people.
I said to Aaron, you know, we're on the same page. We're just different.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us are different, but we've got our heart in the right place. That's what counts, you know. And it doesn't matter who's right and wrong. It doesn't matter. We're all in the right path and we know what we're doing. That's all that counts, man.
We come together in love.
Share that love with everyone else. That's all that counts.
That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, you guys.
It's good to meet you, Aaron.
You too, Kim. Thank you so much, brother.
Hopefully we'll talk again, you know.
Yes.
We don't want to be strangers. We want to keep together. We want to keep everything together.
That's what this is all about, y'all. Coming together, unifying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 150%. Absolutely.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Absolutely. We can all help each other. All of us.
Definitely. We're building bridges.
It brings other people to all of us too, like to Jess as well. Like Jess gets the right people here and we get united and more people come together and unite the same way because it's all another thorn in the box, you know what I mean? And it all works. It's all plus, 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 plus. No minus here.
Yep. Everyone has their role to play. Just like members of the body, you know, it's all different, but it's all needed.
And you know what? It's okay to disagree and not agree with everything. It's okay not to like someone better than another. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we're not evil and we're not against each other. And people just got to remember that. It doesn't matter what you believe in, guys out there. You know, don't get in that narrative that everyone's wrong if they don't believe what you believe in, because we all have different opinions. So what? There's nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't mean we're bad or evil at all, or we're wrong neither. We're just different. And we're allowed to be different.
It's welcome to be different. Like we are all connected energetically, but we're all different souls. We're all living this experience in our own way, depending on how we grew up, what our parents, the trauma we've gone through, you know, whether or not you've had a nice, easy, cushy life or you've been grown up into the streets. It all makes different people and different souls, but no one is better than the other. No one is greater than the other. We're all equally beautiful and allowed and given the ability to live here. And, you know, once we start respecting and appreciating people's differences, that's when we can come back to the true unconditional love, the primordial state where we're supposed to be, you know, living in.
You know, I've always said some of the most simple people I've ever met, like simple people with low IQ, are some of the most beautiful people. You know, they really are, like just plain Jane people, some of the most beautiful people. But you know something, Jess? If I met 1,000 Jessies, I'd be shit scared. I don't want a bunch of Rovers to be the same. I mean, what's unique about us is our difference. You know, like the reason we like each other is that we're different. We love meeting people that are different. You know, the campfire, the feast and wine with family, lovers and friends. We love barbecues. We love to sit down and talk to people because we're different. And it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone's different. Everyone's special in their own way, man.
Amen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you know, bless you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you,
was great.
Jesse.
This is exactly what I wanted. You know, for I think that worked out, you know, how
Beautiful.
according to plan. So we've got another missing link tomorrow. We're interviewing at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Vem Miller. He is from TV and production. He's sold and produced over $250 million worth of content. He's worked with people like DMX, John Mayer, Master P, Chris Brown, Trey Songz, Alien Ant Farm, DJ Jerry Seinfeld, all these other people. So he's going to come tomorrow to share his story with us here back on The Missing Link. I love y'all. Thank you so much again for all your likes, comments, hearts, shares, and stars. We appreciate all of your love and support. I'm Jesse Howell, your host of The Missing Link, and I definitely see us coming back, you know, with these guys again, maybe a bigger panel. So I just wanted to see how that worked out, and it seemed like it worked out okay today. So thanks again. Love y'all. Please share this out, and we'll see you next time we see you on The Missing Link. Bye, everyone. Bye, Aaron. Bye,
Thank
Kim.
you, guys.
Thanks, guys.